County Metropolitan Transportation Authority contribution to the presentation to the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority Board. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had a lot of information. Now also, where the thanks goes out to is the MTA board members, Honorable Michael Antonovich, and I know you heard about Mike. He's been around a long time out of Glendale, Republican boy. And then you got Honorable R. Najarian, all right, Glendale, California, Republican too. And then you have the MTA CEO, Philip A. Washington, and his staff. They sent me a lot. And he used to be over RTD in Denver before he left and he went to MTA.
You have about 3 more minutes.
Thank you. Don't worry. I don't have a problem. The next, in terms of that outline, deals with Jet Propulsion Labs, Thinking Logic, you know, locking you out of Flintridge. You know that, Patty. Transit TV's next. Basic transit TV applications. Basic rafter ridership data. Basic rafter economic geography. Stay Aspen Snowmass. Basic transit TV benefits for rafter, for bus riders, for taxpayers, for advertisers, marketers, for rafter economic geography, for Colorado state government, for employers. Then the last two are basic contract musts between transit TV contractor and rafter. And then there's future model for resort communities, and then there's conclusion. Well, anyway, you have a lot to think about when it comes to it. Let's see if Blankenship puts it online. If he doesn't, well, what can I say? The man doesn't want to help out a lot of people. I'll give it over here to the county clerk, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, MZ.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anybody from the press here? Yes, ma'am.
Additional public comments? Tony, please.
Hi, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Toni Kronberg, and I just wanted to bring up 3 things at this meeting. And the first one is I've come before you about asking Aspen City Council about making the Library Park Plaza a designated view plane. And if you probably read the papers today, that the city is going to take into consideration the value of the view plane right here on the Galena Park Plaza. And as you go out today, you'll see the curtains that are on the plaza. They are 12 feet tall, and the new proposed City Hall building will be 20 feet tall. So City Council is going to have another meeting on September 13th, and they're going to make some decisions about whether they're going to move forward with a study that's done, will be done, funded by Bruce Etkin, but be done by the City of Aspen, as to whether it would be a better use for City Hall to be community benefit, or if they should remain a city hall. And that decision will trigger a lot what happens, whether on the plaza, with Tasters over in the Rio Grande, with all their expansion. And so that was the first thing. And the second thing is many thanks to John Kinney, because the meeting before last, during the work session, I believe he gave you the information that you needed to see how many flights are coming into the airport this coming winter, and what those numbers will do to trigger the expansion of a couple different areas at the airport. One of them, as John said, he didn't want to focus on the expansion of the sterile boarding area right now because he had 2 other pressing concerns. One is the baggage going through United, and the second one is adding additional TSA so you can process people through the line quicker. But once those things are implemented and you process people quicker, then you're definitely going to have to be looking at an expansion of the sterile boarding area. So really, all those things really need to be looked at simultaneously in order to keep it moving forward until the new airport terminal is approved and construction is started on it. The third thing is the EOTC funding that the county commissioners approved at the last meeting. And first I want to say thank you much for approving that, because without that moving forward, we cannot reopen the record of decision so easily, nor can we bring any alternatives forward. One of the things that you're aware of that I've tried to bring forward, the inclusion of a study of an aerial gondola system from Brush Creek to Snowmass and from Brush Creek into Aspen. it turns out that that request has got to come through the EOTC first, and the resolution that you're approving at the last meeting, that was not the appropriate time for the funding to be discussed. It's got to go to EOTC first, and then to come back to the individual jurisdictions. One of the reasons why I firmly believe that the aerial gondola is a solution is because light rail, think about this, every time that light rail has to go through an intersection, whether it's the airport, Owl Creek, Buttermilk, the roundabout, every intersection on Main Street, then along Monarch, which is where the Limelight and the Dancing Bear are located, then it would turn onto Durant Street.
2 more minutes.
All traffic has got to come to a stop. And studies have shown that every time a train crosses an intersection and it stops traffic, you have backups at every single intersection. I believe that's the number one reason, besides the $1 billion price tag and the fact that the difference between the rail and the aerial is, the rail, you have to wait for it, and the aerial, you can get onto it whenever you want to. And the aerial, once the buses are full, the roadways are full, and the rail is full, what a lot of cities are doing are going up. And then the last thing so far is that federal code, Rachel, I'm sure you're familiar with this, back in 1997, that a reevaluation was required by federal code before anything got started on the record of decision to make sure that the EIS was still valid. After the last meeting, I contacted the Federal Highway Transportation, and they're going to contact the Colorado Department of Transportation to see if the EOTC needs to hold true to that federal standard. And the reason behind that is if we wait until the bus and the rail study is done, that's set 10 months out. Then you have an EIS on top of it, that's another 2 years. What I'd like to see happen is that if we have to reevaluate the EIS, that is be done now instead of waiting on it. But thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Is there any other public comment in the crowd today? Then thank you very much. We will move on to commissioner comments. Patty?
I just want people to be sure that we have a change in weather coming on. I think the temperatures are dropping significantly. I can actually watch the leaves right out here on the park turning yellow, much to my demise. So please enjoy the rest of the summer. Get ready for fall, and hopefully we'll still have that Indian summer coming upon us, and my tomatoes will actually ripen in my garden. So thank you, and hopefully, yeah.
Here to tomatoes. Very good. Additional board comments, Steve? Do you have anything today?
Kind of dovetailing off of that, there were 2 climbers stranded on Capitol Peak because of snow up on Capitol Peak. And that's just one of the signs of late summer and early fall here. So if you are going out climbing mountains, be prepared for winter type conditions, not just fall type conditions.
Or driving over the passes.
Yeah, there's a good point. George, you have nothing? Michael, nothing today? Very good. I don't really have anything today other than where you have a lengthy agenda, and we're just going to try and plow through it. And would like to thank again everyone for participating in yesterday's work session. The first items are consent items, single readings, and they are the minutes of the regular meeting of July 27th and August 10th, and special meeting of June 23rd and August 2nd and August 9th work session. We have the citizen board appointments. The third item is the resolution supporting a grant application for a local parks and outdoor recreation grant from the State Board of the Great Outdoors Colorado Trust Fund for planning the Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail. The fourth item is a resolution authorizing the Pitkin County Manager's Office to submit a grant application to the State of Colorado Department of Local Affairs Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Fund. That's for broadband. And number 5 is the resolution making the Director of the Open Space and Trails a regular full-time employee reporting to the county manager. Do I have a motion to approve the consent items or any that people would like to pull? Is there a second?
I second it, but I just want to make a comment.
Yeah, we'll have that during discussion. So it has been moved and seconded. Patty, please.
Yeah, I just want to welcome and thank Martha Campbell, who will be is being appointed to our Citizen Grant Review Committee. They are gearing up full swing to review all the grants that come in for the Healthy Community Fund, and so we're welcoming, greatly appreciate Martha's taking the time to be part of this committee.
Very good.
Thank you, Rachel.
Patty. George.
One quick correction for Jeanette on the minutes of August 10th. You had comments regarding the passing of George Mattson on Rachel's, and that was actually, I made those comments. And I'd like to pull items 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
So we need
With
to
the
amend
maker of the motion, George, can we just discuss those without pulling the motion, perhaps? And
Certainly, yeah,
use
I
those
did.
in discussion to make it easier. Okay, what would you like to say about or ask about item number 3?
Oh, I'd like to have our staff give us an update and give the public an update on that, the grant application.
Happy to do it. So, I'm Gary Tenenbaum with Pickens County Open Space and Trails, and the grant application is from Great Outdoor Colorado, and it is for the trail planning grant for the Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail. As many of you know, the Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail was put on the Governor of Colorado's 16 Trails for 2016 list, and that is part of his Colorado the Beautiful initiative, which is really trying to get trails to every Coloradan, and it's a lofty goal. It really is really impressive when you look at what has been happening throughout the state. So, part of this is how do you fund all of these great projects? And there were 16 that were chosen. We're really excited that the Carbondale to Crested Butte was put on that list. We have been working with Gunnison County and the town of Crested Butte to figure out how to do the next phases, and part of that is to get some funding together so we can start a very large planning effort on this Carbondale to Crested Butte Trail. So this grant is through GOCO, and we're going to be seeking approximately $200,000 from GOCO. This will fund engineering studies on alignments. This will fund a very large environmental report that will also go into the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, and to deal with some survey issues that we have with CDOT. And so this funding will supplement county funding, and we'll work with Gunnison and Crested Butte to get this trail plan. We're going to start a large public outreach campaign. This is all really set to go in 2017, and we'll, as we talked about yesterday, the caucus will be heavily involved, and we'll start this fall getting them informed of how we're going to start the planning.
Great, thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, item number 4. Cara.
Thank you. Kara Silbernagel with the Pickens County Manager's Office. And this item is, we are looking to submit a grant to the Department of Local Affairs, Energy and Mineral Impact Assistant Fund for broadband funding. Moving forward, this is really setting the stage of kind of phase 1 as we look to broadband, as well as leveraging the public safety communications infrastructure and TV translator infrastructure. So we are requesting $860,000 from the Department of Local Affairs with a 50% match moving forward. And the key elements infrastructure that we will be asking for is the redevelopment of Elephant, Red Hill, and Thomasville translator sites, as well as expanding our microwave network system that Jeff Kruger, our communications engineer, is designing for public safety. The purpose of that is that we're actually going to expand it to a 2 gigabit capacity that will then help create more capacity for a broadband connectivity.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
Patty.
Kara, where's the 50% match coming from?
It's going to be coming from the translator fund.
Perfect, thank
So
you.
they're cost sharing that.
Okay. One other question on that. Red Hill, that is in Garfield County?
That is in Eagle County.
That's in Eagle County.
But we do have a standing lease for that site with the Forest Service.
Okay. I was just thinking, last night after we had our discussion about this, that, the Enroll Mineral Fund is really much lower than it's been in the past because of the downturn in the oil and gas drilling. And I know we have a little bit of input into that fund, but not a lot. Whereas our neighbors, such as Gunnison, have more, and certainly Garfield has more. And I was just wondering, in terms of trying to move this forward, what level of perhaps support from those two entities we could garner for this moving forward, because then the DOLA, maybe even in your conversations with DOLA, and how to couch this best of serving those counties as well, it will really be helpful.
Absolutely. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but Eagle County is very supportive of this because it is so critical to all of the frying pan with us developing. Red Hill and Thomasville will both be broadband, as well as improving public safety coverage for that area as well. So,
great, thank you very much. And then the item 5 you wanted to discuss, George?
Yeah, please.
Dale, feel free to jump in here. Item 5 is really more of a cleanup between various documents. Since 1999, the Open Space and Trails Director has been a contracted employee with the Board of County Commissioners, and in addition has worked under the contract, job description, and charter, not all of which outline exactly the same lines of accountability in terms of administration of that position. And so what is proposed here is to cancel that contract that was put in place in 1999, make the Open Space and Trails Director a regular full-time position of the county. Under the Home Rule Charter, that position then would report to the county manager, but all responsibilities and authorities that are outlined for both the Board of County Commissioners and the Open Space and Trails Board in terms of their responsibilities and their authority vis-a-vis participating in the selection process and any conversations about a termination process, should that come, would stay in place. It would just be my responsibility then to consult the boards to follow through on that. And so this has been discussed for some time now. We think it's a good solution to clean up some confusion that's existed between multiple documents over the last 16 or 17 years.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, John.
Okay, is there any further questions on the consent items? We do have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We would now have a consent item set for public hearing on September 14th, and this is a resolution authorizing the Emergency Manager's Performance Grant. Valerie?
I'm Valerie McDonald. I'm the Pickens County Emergency Manager, and I'm here with a resolution asking the board to authorize the acceptance of the State Emergency Manager's Performance Grant. The purpose of that grant is to fund a portion of the Pickens County Emergency Management budget and to enable us to develop a comprehensive all-hazard emergency management program in the county. If accepted, this would be the third consecutive year that we've successfully applied for and been granted $65,000.
Very nice.
Are there any questions?
Okay, Patty?
In looking at the matching, I went to Exhibit B, page 3 of 3, and it says required non-federal local share. It's like a dollar-to-dollar match. Is that right? 65,000.
The grant, the max it would fund is 50% of our budget. It's just over a little. We're just a little below that, and it's reimbursable. So I applied for this grant the beginning of the year. We've just gotten the contract, which is why I'm here now. So I'm halfway through this grant period. So the way they look at it is the county paid the first half, and then they'll pay the second half. It's
Perfect. All right.
reimbursable.
Thank you.
Valerie, the contract says that funds shall be expended by December 31st, 2016. So you probably partly explained that, but have we spent sort of half the funds now, and we will be spending the rest by the end of this year?
Close. By the end of the year, it works out.
And is there any way, if we don't use it all, can any of it be carried forward to next year?
No. This grant is very subjective. It's very subjective, and we get 65. I don't ever expect any more. It could be less. It all depends on federal budget and what the state distributes throughout our 64 counties. So far, I've gotten 65. I'm feeling good about the 65, but it's very subjective, and I need to say that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? There being none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the Pitkin County Office of Emergency Management to accept a grant from the state of Colorado and other entities.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Thanks for successfully pursuing the grant. That makes a lot of difference.
Thanks, Valerie.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're now going to move on to individual consideration items, and the first item is an application for a renewal medical and retail marijuana license, Cooper Mason Ventures LLC. Do we have the applicants here in the room?
Rachel, I don't see I don't see the applicants here. I think they're probably going to arrive any moment.
Okay. Well, in that case, Board, would we like to take the second item up, the application for a new marijuana retail grow license submitted by Sopris Verde? Michael?
And that you have the number, phone number, contact number,
I do in my office, not here, unfortunately.
You'll call?
Board, would we like to move on to the next item, or would, Steve?
To give due justice to the Cooper Mason Ventures, even if they came in later during
Yeah,
our
we
meeting, we
would go
could
back
put them
to it.
in whenever, and I think that would be the right thing and fair thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, given the length of that consent calendar, they may have just misjudged how long it was going to take us. We're into it at just a half
They
hour,
got
which is
stuck in the
good.
traffic on the highway.
Okay, yeah. And we're in the new location. So let's go ahead and move forward with the Sopris Verde application, and the applicants, please come forward. Is that okay, Jeanette? Sure.
Got an extra chairman here.
You want to sit there?
Yeah, sure.
Good day, everyone. So I'm Candace Resnick, and this is Trevor Fair. He is going to be my grower for the operation. Many of you already know him. And this is my son, Aaron Resnick, who is here to help me if I stumble. He knows quite a bit about it. He's been going along with this. He got home on Friday, and so we've gone over a whole lot of this. What I'd like to introduce, I would like to introduce the topic by saying that I've experienced a little bit of resistance from my neighbors on Sopris Mountain Ranch. Not all of them. I know that the ones that are resistant, some of them are here, and a lot of them have written letters. And I would just like to say that I have their concerns in mind, and I believe that in my application I've addressed a lot of the things that they seem to be concerned about, which is the odor, the impact on their lifestyles. We are not talking about something that's ginormous here. We're talking about something that's going to be put in it's an indoor grow. It's going to be inside my already existing studio building that I was using for ceramics and have been running a successful art business out of for years, but have had to retire because at this point I'm 68 years old as of yesterday, and my hands are giving out and my back is giving out, and I cannot do that anymore. So some of you maybe have seen me here before, and I've done some other successful projects
in the valley. I was the developer and owner formerly of the building in Basalt that Saxes is in. I just would like to say to everyone here that, you know, I'm a responsible business person. I have concern for the community. I've been here since 1979. My main motivation is to be able to stay in my home. And I'm the nearest neighbor to the grow, after all. So I don't even smoke marijuana myself, but I would like to not smell it, so I'm going to mitigate the odors. Most of everything that I have, I mean, it's all in my application. So I guess in the interest of time, maybe the best thing to do is to open it up to comments, and I'll address the comments as they come and the questions. And Aaron's here to help me with all of that. So, as is
Both of
Trevor,
us are.
As is Trevor. So.
Okay, thank you very much. We've received a series of letters about this, and they've all come via email. I asked Jeanette that they be able to pull them together into kind of one packet that the board can look at or pass by to make sure we have enough for the public record. I think that concerns have been raised about the access road. Can you address that?
Yes, I actually brought a copy of my site map here. We are bordered by the Prince Creek or Dinkle Lake Road, if you will, on the upper side. So I have many ways to access a road other than going through the Holland Lot A.
You know, ideally we would.
Pardon me. I was just going to ask the same thing. I was saying, do we have a map of the area and the location of the facility?
So this is my old site map. I grabbed that. Is that
Okay, yeah, we're going to.
And then I think John Ely may have some comments as to all of this as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I did consult with him before I actually even started in on the application and showed him a copy of my easement agreement. So
They're setting that up. Jeanette, did you have a brief summary of issues?
I do, but it's all in your packet. And
Yeah, we can go back to that. I'm sorry if I
she
started.
has started with her presentation. She let her go.
Okay, but I just thought your summary was really good.
Yeah, the camera. Yeah.
John Peacock, can you?
Go.
Oh wait, no, maybe we got it. It's the old one.
No, it's not the only one?
Yep.
I think you want it straight up and down.
You got a pen on you? Let's see that.
All right.
That work?
mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm going to move for a second. Okay, thank you for the map. Let's go backwards for just 1 second here
Okay.
and have Jeanette make her presentation on the application, and then we'll go forward. I apologize for that.
Okay, this is a conditional approval only for an application for a retail cultivation facility license submitted by Sopris Verde, Candace Resnick, to be located at 5353 West Sopris Creek Road. The applicant is
John, can
in...
you pull the microphone a little closer?
I'm
Just-
sorry.
That's okay. We'll point it towards her.
Good boy,
Yes, let's start again.
Applicant is in receipt of her state license and has complied with all the conditions and the regulations at the state level. And the reason we're bringing this forward to you is there, as you see through my memo and through this presentation and through the hearing, that there are going to be several conditions that haven't been met yet that the applicant is willing to meet, but she is going to have to expend a great deal of money to meet these conditions. So it's a conditional approval only. If the conditions are met, we will bring the final approval back to you with all the conditions associated with the license. So you will see it a second time. I'm not sure if that will be a notice public hearing. It'll be a notice public hearing as well. As Candace mentioned, her proposal is to convert an old pottery studio space into a facility which will consist of a greenhouse, a processing area, and an attached office, which will be used for retail marijuana cultivation, drying, trimming, and storage, as well as other business-related activities. An agricultural operation is allowed in the RS30 zone district. I want to mention that as well. Candace is proposing that her number of plants will be a total of 75, and that those will be in flower, as well as others, babies that grow to flowers will be in there as well. Her intention is to convert her existing well and irrigation rights from domestic to commercial designation, and I did pass out to the commissioners early on a letter from Bob Noon talking about his help with her in the water courts to get that accomplished. Candace, the applicant, has agreed that composting on the site will be in strict adherence to the state marijuana regulations, and she will speak to that a little later on in the hearing. She has committed to installing security systems, again in conformance with state regulations, and they will be in conformance with Brian Paul's regulations as the building official also. The buildings are legally approved buildings, and Brian Paul has submitted a referral comment that he is in agreement with a conditional approval, and he will work with the applicant for all the permitting and the final, if it happens, certificate of occupancy. Kurt Dahl was going to be here. It doesn't look like he's here yet either, with regard to the odor emanating from the facility, if there is any odor, and a copy of his comment is in your packets as well, addressing that issue. As well as a comment from the Basalt Fire Chief that he has some conditions that he wants the applicant to meet, and again, she will meet with him once she has those conditions fulfilled, and we will receive another letter from him or a commitment that those conditions are in conformance. Again, the Crystal River Caucus has approved the proposal. I think the applicant met with them early on in the year at one of their meetings, and they did approve her proposal, and a copy of their minutes are in your packet.
Thank you. And then, again, from some of the many letters we've received, there seemed to be some concern as to which caucus this property truly fell in. Has that been resolved?
It has. It's in, John put a copy of that, Mapson, from Pickin Mapson Moore. And do you want to?
The situation of the property is depicted on the screen. As you can see, the area that is shaded is the Resnick property, and it is situated in the within the Crystal River Caucus, which is the area outlined in part on the left. The Emma Caucus is the area outlined in part on the right. Between the two caucuses in this area is a strip of BLM land, which runs from the Crown to the Forest Service controlled and administered property, generally on the same latitude as Dinkle Lake, and running over and around Cypress Mountain. So the aspect of the property is that it's clearly in the Crystal River Caucus and has been such since 1994, but the association of the property is commonly referred to Emma to the east, simply because the primary access road is West Cypress Creek Road, and that is I think the situation which has prompted the majority of the public comments coming in on the application.
Okay, thank you. Patty?
I'd like a point of clarification, John. Since we are proceeding with the application is before us, it's been submitted, we need to go by the rules in which apply right now. We can't hold this application up, change the boundary of the caucus, and then bring the application back, because it would be changing the rules once technically the game has started.
That is true, and I'm not sure how the county would go about changing the boundaries of a caucus, which has been established in large part, if not exclusively, by the efforts of citizens. However, all of the comments that have been furnished by Emma Caucus and the individual citizens and property owners within the Emma Caucus area can be considered in reviewing the application.
Right, I understand that. The other question I have real quick is notification. We've had a lot of caucus issues this week. The notification of caucuses, generally we notify through a 10-day public notice, right? The caucus in which the application lies. Concerns have come up about why didn't we get noticed in the associated or the neighboring caucus, and I don't know how or where the board wants to discuss that, but that's an issue that's come up frequently, and I just want to get it out.
For the audience, we had a very lengthy discussion on the Snowmass Capitol Creek caucus yesterday, and part of that was kind of revealing that our caucus rules are very old and written a long time ago, and to the extent they don't include things like email communications or how people communicate, and the standards are fairly vague. We all talked about the potential of putting together a charter committee to start to look at the caucus rules and see if they can be improved for the future. One of the things that struck me was that similar to the type of zone of influence rules that we have with Basalt or El Jebel and these other areas, if they're within 3 miles of Pickens County, we will comment, just like we will comment at times on city applications and back and forth. But that could be something that could be more formalized in a charter update, that charters would be, caucuses would be notified if an application was coming in within 3 miles of their border that would affect them. All that being said, as I think Patty has indicated, that is separate from the acceptance of letters and public comment today and neighborhood concerns. And I would just point out at the very end of the day, the ability to license or not license is entirely discretional to the board. It is not based on you hit code, therefore you're approved. It's not any sort of automatic that way. The concerns of the neighbors can certainly be taken into account, the appropriateness of the location and other items.
Can I just add one other thing to that? Rachel's absolutely right in that, and just again so the public knows, in order to amend how we're dealing with caucuses, these new issues that are coming up, correct me, John, but it takes an amendment to our home rule charter, which is a public vote.
That's correct.
Which would be
and that would have to be on a ballot, which would have to be in a year or 2 years or somewhere down the line.
Right. That's correct. In terms of any sort of formal, but again, we certainly consider the comments of neighbors, no matter what caucus they're in, or if they're in a no man's land in between two caucuses, which almost seems more the case. What was the last thing? George, and then...
Can I just tag on to that? Because this is a good example in terms of some of the challenges in the Emma area. So on the Emma Road, on the south side of the Emma Road is in Pickens County. On the north side of the Emma Road is in Eagle County. However, we consider, and they consider, all being part of the Emma neighborhood. And they are involved and have been involved in the original master plan and the update of the master plan. And even more interesting, even though it's in Eagle County on the north side, any land use applications that come before the Eagle County commissioners, they refer to the Emma master plan because they understand that even though it's cross boundaries, it's a neighborhood. It's an intact neighborhood. So this is another example where even though we're crossing boundaries, it's really considered part of the Emma neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Michael?
This is for John. John, could you explain to me what a conditional approval is versus a final approval?
It simply means that before an individual licensee can rely upon the license and conduct operations consistent with the license, it must meet certain conditions specified prior. So, for example, a conditional license might have requirements to say that you will construct the facility in such a manner to conform with specific building code requirements or fire code requirements or items in addition to those basic codes.
And then what happens then?
It's up to the BOCC. If those items are completed and can be reviewed by the licensing authority, who is Jeanette, then that individual licensee can go ahead and rely upon the previously issued license. Or we can set it up as Jeanette is proposing here, that the evaluation of completeness of those conditions shall be reviewed by the BOCC.
And so it's only those conditions that govern the final approval?
No, it would be the entirety of state regulations, state law, state constitutional amendments, and Pitkin County's own marijuana regulations.
And do we have the discretion to deny it?
The board has wide discretion in reviewing applications for any marijuana facilities, either retail or medical. The board has outlined the framework of exercising that discretion within our marijuana regulations.
So what I'm getting at, John, is that the difference between conditional and final seems to me to be non-existent, quite frankly. So if we give conditional approval under certain conditions, they get their license.
That's correct.
But we don't have any discretion left at that point.
If the board decides to go forward and issue a conditional license today or at some point, then once the applicant, the licensee, meets those conditions, then the license is effective. In other words, the board has defined its discretion to say you may go forward provided that. Whereas the initial review, which is what is going on today with this particular application, is much broader. In other words, the board can entertain topics of compliance with state and local regulations, the appropriateness of the activity within the neighborhood involved, any potential change to the character of the neighborhood that the activity might consequence, the adequacy of the facilities to accommodate the proposed licensed activities, etc.
Okay, thank you, John.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to take public comments or anything from the audience after we've had our discussion at the board, so people understand that. But again, John, just to come back to the kind of final question after Michael, the board has the discretion to make the determination if it's appropriate for the neighborhood based on character of the neighborhood, changes to the neighborhood, appropriateness of the application.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And Jeanette, did we have your presentation finished before we start answering more questions? Okay, thank you. And then we'll come back to you for any additional items you'd like to add to your presentation.
Oh, you're back to me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, this isn't, in my understanding, a land use application. I mean, the land use is already there. It's agricultural, and I'm an RS30 parcel, so it's allowed. So somebody brought up the land use application, I think, along the line, and I was just wanting to kind of clarify that, both in my mind and for anybody else who might have heard that. This morning, I went and took some pictures, which Aaron's going to put on the screen, if that's
Yes,
all right
please
with
put
you.
one on the Elmo, and then afterwards we'll leave them with Jeanette for the record.
I just think this is just a way to give you guys like kind of a visceral understanding of sort of what it looks like up there. So this right here is a picture from our front porch. I'm going to figure out which way is up, right side up. Okay, can you guys see that? Is that?
It's kind of washed out. Sorry, my printer was
little-
running out of ink.
It's okay. Okay, hi.
It's pretty.
So this is a picture from the front porch, which is like the optimal view that you could take if you wanted to see any neighbors. And you guys can see that at least from right there, you know, it's unclear that anyone is very close to us. And let me see that pen. We also took a picture from our nearest neighbor's house. Looking up towards where we are, I'm going to draw a circle around where we are because you can't really see. I think that was the right side. Yeah. Ooh, that's even worse. We're right there. From this particular neighbor, this is our closest neighbor. You actually can't see our house. It is true if you drive down the road, 2 more miles, you can kind of like, if you squint, see the peak. But I just wanted to try and reassure everybody around here that, including the audience, that I don't know that everyone here knows exactly where we live. So I'm trying to convey that in fact.
Patty?
We're quite a ways
Which
away.
direction, for me, who lives at this end of the valley, which direction is that? Is it looking towards Carbondale, or is it looking towards West Soapers?
Okay, so this is on West Soapers Creek Road, and if you're familiar with going up to Dingle Lake, this cattle guard right here is still on the asphalt, but I'd say maybe 100 yards before it turns to dirt.
Got it.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the photographs?
Well, as long as it's up there, I have a question, because one of the concerns and one of the issues was, actually, you have a closer neighbor, they just haven't built. You've got an adjoining lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So there is a lot, a buildable lot, an owner right adjacent to you. So let's clarify that to begin with.
Yeah, we're talking about that owner has had that lot for.
And they could build any.
Let's not have a debate.
Okay, and so anyway, there is an adjacent lot. It could be built tomorrow if they wanted to. One of the questions was in terms of access, because when you subdivided that parcel, you got an easement to your home. I think I read somewhere in the application that if that easement was not going to be allowed, that you would have other egresses to your home. How would that happen? Would you have to build a driveway? And where would that be?
So we are surrounded, as my mother said earlier, by the Dingle Lake Road right there, and there's direct access to our property right there. If we did have to build a driveway, it'd be like really, really short to the back of the house there. But that would be, I would imagine, something that would be part of the conditional approval process that you guys are talking about right now. And what that road
You
would
need to make
entail.
sure you're speaking right to the mic.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that would have to be something that I would think be part of the conditional approval process, and it's something that we would have to get done. And I don't know exactly. Yeah,
Either-
we'd have to provide ourselves with access.
Yeah,
Can we look at that prior map and you could show us?
Certainly.
It's below on the Elmo,
Yes.
I think, and just show us where you're saying a second access could exist.
I mean, that's our solution to the problem if there can be no amendment of the.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we'd
road.
be happy to negotiate with the owners of Lot A.
Okay, but where again would your access be if you?
So right here is about where the house is, I'd say. I suppose
Anywhere
I could
along
do
really
anywhere
that-
along here, but
yeah.
most likely.
It's quite flat right there,
Yeah,
coming
very
in.
flat.
Thank you. Michael, you have a question?
So what's the problem here? I'm not quite grasping it. So you must have an existing driveway, but that's on some other property? Is that what's?
The existing driveway, per a letter we received, which I'm sure we'll hear public comment on shortly, has an easement over other people's property, but the easement is not granted for commercial activity such as a marijuana grow. And unless there was agreement to allow that access, they could be forced to find another access for those activities.
So, John Ely, Dingle Lake Road, that's closed in the wintertime, it's not maintained. If someone wanted to go before the county, is it a county road at that point? Because at some point it turns into a Forest Service road. They would have to go before the county for a permit to have a driveway off the road, and then the county would be then responsible for maintaining and plowing that part of the road that's closed in the winter?
Sorry to say, George, I can't completely answer your question. Over the years, I've heard differing descriptions as to where Forest Service aspect changes. In other words, a Forest Service road versus a county road, and the nature of it is that the road is administered and improved periodically by the county through an agreement that we have with the Forest Service. So actual ownership might be different than who is performing work on the road, and ultimate control of that road. So to plow in on the Dinkle Lake Road up to that point might actually require approval from not only the county but the federal government.
Well, beyond
I just
that,
don't. I just can't answer it for you. Sorry.
you know, that creates a real uncertainty to me that would need to be fully understood, because if it's similar to airspace, once you're into federal airspace, federal law applies and marijuana possession, growing, or use is illegal, whereas if it's on private property in Colorado, it's different. So, you know, the ownership of that road would make a huge difference as to whether a marijuana delivery truck would be allowed to drive to and from. I'll come back.
All right.
So that does kind of raise an issue. Yes, Michael.
So, John, this is possibly allowed because this property is zoned agricultural. Is that right?
The proposed use, the marijuana cultivation facility for retail marijuana, is allowed under county regulations because it is zoned for residential or agricultural use.
Right. So, what is the commercial aspect then? We don't issue a business license for this. We issue.
The county does not issue business licenses. We issue marijuana facility licenses only, and that's what this application is for.
So is that a commercial enterprise or an agricultural enterprise?
Well, it's been the subject of ongoing discussion, I would say, but at this point, at least, it is resolved to the point of view that agricultural production of marijuana is an agricultural activity.
Okay, thank you.
So can I clarify that?
Patty.
So Michael, what you're saying is that the access, because if it's a restricted access now for residential, not commercial, since this is technically, quote unquote, an agricultural license, they most likely would still be allowed to access under their existing driveway? Is that kind of what you're?
Well, I don't know.
But that's
all I'm
what-
saying is I don't know what the
The
issue of commercial is if we're allowing an agricultural
Right.
activity on an agriculturally zoned piece of land. So I don't know where the commercial came in.
That's a great question.
I see John's hands up first, then come back to George.
You want to go first?
Okay.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how does the assessor view a site like this? Do they view it, assess it as a residential, as a commercial, or do they get an ag exemption?
This, I believe, currently is classified residential.
And so if they were to put in a commercial operation, would they still be assessed residential, or would it be commercial, or would they get an ag exempt?
For this particular operation, I believe the classification would not change. As far as the access goes, though, let me say something in addition, which is that the dispute which apparently exists as to the viability of the current driveway, which exists at least by virtue of an explicit grant of easement from the property below, which is right here, to access the Resnick property here on a driveway which runs like so.
Oh, that's what I'm
Is up in the air, I guess. There is at least apparently a contention by the Resnick folks that they have the right to use that driveway, and a contention by the owners of the adjoining property that they do not, for uses related to marijuana cultivation. The county, the Board of County Commissioners, doesn't have the authority to make a final determination as to a private agreement or private situation between two property owners. If the county were to approve a license here, and the adjoining property owner would contest the viability of the availability of the easement for the servicing of that activity, they could take it to court, and the court may agree with either side. Who knows? But our decision is limited pretty much only to the application of our criteria to the request that's in front of us. We just don't have the legal capacity to determine with finality people's property rights. particularly with respect to easements and so forth.
Wouldn't that be part of, couldn't we make that part of the conditional approval, that they have to have access?
Yes.
Thank you. Other board questions on that discussion point? Your turn now.
So let me just also say, to your point earlier, everyone's confusion, that Dinkle Lake Road is bordered by private property on both sides. My property and Holland's property, Leslie Wexner, essentially, and all of them. So it doesn't run through Forest Service land at that point. So I believe it's a county road. Now, in terms of, is the county then required to take care of it? I don't know. Or can I say, I'll plow it if that's what it takes, I mean, I'm required to plow my own driveway, I have done for years. Or do we say, well, in the wintertime, when it's closed, we go in and out for this business on snowmobiles? I mean, I've been there since 1979, and I worked with Steve's father to get the road improved up to my property because it was impassable from the Sopris Mountain Ranch all the way up to the bottom of my road for the first 10 years that I lived there. So, I don't know how those things work, but it didn't used to be paved either, and it is now.
Thank you. And
If I could add one thing, I don't know if it's relevant, tell me if it's not, but there is also a house that was built a couple of years back, I think, that is right about here. It's like a little bit off the road, right here, and I don't think it's used year-round, but there's definitely a driveway there, and the county doesn't plow up to that driveway, so.
It's a cabin, and it belongs to the Turnbulls.
yeah, we have roads that we don't plow in the winter.
Yeah, exactly, sorry.
Right.
All right, so are there additional items you'd care to make in your presentation?
I just want to say
And
that
just identify stuff for the record, makes it easier later. Your name?
Trevor Ferrer. Any issues that arise or conditions, I talked with Kurt Dahl yesterday, and he said he's willing to work with us, and we're going to work with him to go above and beyond any of the conditions.
For odor mitigation concerns?
Everything, yes.
Okay, environmental, okay. Thank you very much. If the board has no other questions, I would open public comment. Patty and Steve
I have
about
a
that question.
question. Another issue I think of conditions is the water. And I know that we've had a lot of letters coming through, and it's my understanding that one of the issues that we've learned with our ongoing education in marijuana uses in the county is that water courts, there's kind of been a stalemate as far as approving changes in use of water from irrigation ditches, maybe not from wells, but irrigation ditches, or maybe rivers and streams nearby, as far as the legality of allowing those waters to be used for marijuana cultivation. So I think that is an issue I just want to bring forward, and we may want to include that as part of the, because I know that your water court is expensive and it's lengthy, and I know you have to change your existing uses from your residential to a commercial use, and that is just something we've learned with other issues in the valley as far as the hesitancy of the state water courts to approve a change in use of water for the purpose of growing marijuana. So that could be a real issue for you in the future, and I think that should be noticed as part of the water conditions, as part of the conditional approval. I think Trevor has an answer for me.
We don't want to impact the roads with having to bring water in, so one of the issues we'll address immediately will be going to water court and getting those rights and working closely with Bill Blakesley as far as covering everything we need. We can get TDR well rights or buy Rudai Reservoir rights and trade rights and stuff for our ditch
Right.
or well or spring.
Right,
So
and-
we're ready to take care of it.
Right, and we understand that. I just wanted to bring forward the fact that we've seen for other water right issues that there's been a real difficulty with the state water courts in approving the use of, the change of use for marijuana growing because of this questionable gray area of the legality of growing marijuana on, with federal oversight. So just to let you guys know that.
Yep.
And it's my understanding, and Rachel's probably the best one on this, is that going to water court, not only is it expensive, it is a lengthy process, and I'm not sure a year is fair
Yeah,
to say.
it's hard to say the difference between a large take
Yeah.
issues
Yeah.
like a versus this. I
Yeah,
really wouldn't
but
want to hazard a
it's
guess.
just an unknown out there.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah, I have several questions for the applicant. First one is, you have had a medical caregiver operation, medical marijuana caregiver operation there. Could you tell us about how much space that took? Was it using the same space you're proposing for the retail marijuana?
And how many
It took
plants?
about
How
the
many
same.
plants you had?
It
and
took
that's-
about the same space, and it was, I had the permit to grow 75 plants. It was for my closest, dearest friend who had pancreatic cancer last summer, so I had a 75 plant count. So we actually did half of that, and it, it didn't take up the full space of the studio at all. And some of it was in the greenhouse. I know Pierre expressed a concern to me because I did have a light in there at one point along the way, very briefly. As soon as he made me aware that it was bothering him, that it was light pollution, I turned it off. So that was what that was all about, yeah.
Who's Pierre?
Pierre, Larry, my next door neighbor.
That's me, sir.
Okay.
I'm the neighbor.
Thank you, and we'll be doing public comment soon. Pierre also, I believe, wrote us a letter of concern. So, thank you for the reference.
Okay, you talk about having shading to shield the lights from the going outside, and I presume that's outside of the greenhouse portion.
Actually,
Have those installed now? or-
no, I haven't done any of this. This is all, I can't afford, I don't have these deep pockets. I'm not Jordan's operation. I'm not proposing 25,000 square feet up there and never will. This is very small, and I will be using some form of light deprivation cloth. It would be inside the greenhouse. It would, pull down at night when lights might be shining. It will go up in the day so we can utilize the sunshine. And that's how that works.
Okay. One of the questions about water rights in regards to the Division of Water Resources is, for a greenhouse operation, are the roots of the plants actually in the ground, or are they in pots or in hydroponic kind of a thing? So what is your proposal for it?
Well, interesting that you should bring that up, because number one, we are proposing to grow in dirt, and so they will be in pots, but they will be in dirt. I could remove the floor from my studio and put them actually in the dirt, because underneath my studio, there's space to do that. So, I've thought about that, actually.
Yeah, it's my understanding
Yeah.
that if you are growing the plants actually in the ground, in a greenhouse, it is an agricultural operation.
Yeah.
If you have the plants in pots or, elevated off the ground in hydroponics or anything like that, then it's considered a commercial operation, which changes what type of water right you need to provide water for it.
Oh, okay. Well, as I say, just getting into this whole water right thing, and that will be, I'm sure I'll be discussing all this with my water attorney. It kind of came late, the communication from Bob Noon, but, he's looking into it for me. Believe me, I know about the water right situation because I've gone through an augmentation plan before. I know how expensive it is. I know it can be very time consuming. But this is important to me. This is my livelihood going forward, and I'm willing to, take this on if I'm only given permission to do so. So if I need to take my floor out, I will.
Steve, additional?
Okay, one other question. One or two of the letters we received referred to that you have an Airbnb or have been advertising on Airbnb for use of your house for?
Well, I've basically
Yes,
said
so
I'm.
could you talk about that?
I'm 420 friendly. I actually did discuss that with my attorney. As long as you aren't selling it, you are free to give it away or share it with anyone that's coming into your home. I'm not charging anyone for the marijuana. And to tell you the truth, it didn't work anyway. So, I don't need to be doing that. So.
So you're not now operating the Airbnb, but you were at one point?
Well, I would like to continue to operate the Airbnb, which is in my home, which is a completely separate entity. I mean, it's one's over there completely locked and, key padded and key badged, and no one can go in there unless, they've been fingerprinted and cleared like Trevor's had to do and like I've had to do. That's how the operation over there will work. My Airbnb operation is, permitted by the fact that, number one, it's not an official bed and breakfast, and I think everybody in the world is doing Airbnb practically. So it's been my income stream. So
Have you been collecting sales tax on the Airbnb rentals, commercial
You know
activity?
what? I have not, but I'm willing to start. If I need to start doing that, I can start doing that.
I think as a commercial activity, you need to be doing that.
Yeah.
There's a half cent that supports RAFTA, the transportation system throughout the county, any other number
I'm happy to
of
start
items.
doing that. I mean, that's no problem. And, as far as that, just scrolling back to that issue, I believe this is going to be taxed as well, this little operation of mine, which is going to be bringing, added revenue into the community. I mean, I would like to say one thing about this whole commercial versus agricultural. The commercial, it's posted on the sign as retail, and I believe that created some confusion in the neighborhood. Because when Pierre came up, as an example, to my house for dinner on Sunday a couple weeks ago, he and Louise, his wife, saw the sign and they said, "Oh, retail? What does this mean? Are you going to be doing, a dispensary here? Or is there going to be all this traffic coming up and down the road buying marijuana?" So there may have been some misconception right out of the gate amongst my neighbors in the neighborhood. No one has really called me to discuss it with me directly, though they were given my phone number this weekend, and I was more than willing to talk to anybody about it. But it's not that, it's not that. It's going to be completely low-key.
Okay, well, appreciate the clarification. This is not a dispensary. This is not a request for a sales outlet, as it were.
Rachel,
A different question.
I just had one more comment,
Please.
and this has to do with the question of, and the perennial question we have, is marijuana an agricultural operation or a commercial operation? And later, in another part of today's meeting, there's, I think, a partial answer to that, and that's on the open space reauthorization. There is a definition of agricultural from Colorado Revised Statutes, and it says that, and I won't read the whole thing, but the important part, agriculture means the science and art of production of plants and animals useful to man, and that includes horticulture, floriculture, viticulture, forestry, dairy, livestock, poultry, bee, and any and all forms of farm products and farm production. To me, that defines that marijuana is a plant that's useful to man, and by Colorado Revised Statute is defined as an agricultural thing, and that's been I've seen that issue debated by a lot of people saying, well, this isn't agriculture, it's commercial. So I think I just wanted to point that out, that it, later on in our packet, it has that same information.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, the water, excuse me, Rachel,
Okay.
but the water designation has to be designated commercial ultimately to service this. And maybe that's where the word commercial got into this whole mix in the first place.
I think it's a point people have been juggling back and forth for quite a while now. Traditional agriculture, marijuana. Marijuana is a drug. Doesn't that make it pharmaceutical? Doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, it really is a lot of overlapping issues there, certainly. Other board member questions? Okay, we're going to go to public comment in 1 second now. I do have to say I'm a little concerned about the Airbnb bed. That was something that I was going to ask about, so thank you for bringing it up, Steve. You know, it's also a new phenomenon within the community, but it has the potential, as I've learned through some other work with Northwest Council of Governments, QQ, that once somebody has opened an Airbed B&B, their interior, their house becomes subject to personal property tax annually, because it is the beds, it's the furniture, it's the wall paintings, it's everything else that is allowing you to have this commercial business. So there's that. And then it also potentially raises the question of whether a residence should be assessed at a commercial property tax or at a residential property tax. And I think we all know the difference in those rates is 5 times the difference between a flat residential and a commercial property, commercial activity. So I just wanted to put that on the record. That's something that everyone who's doing an Airbed needs to take a look at, and it's something that I believe the assessor's office and working along those lines is just catching up with. But it is a change that everyone's adapting to. I will now open.
Well, just one more thing I would say. I mean, I guess I'm trying to be able to express to you all that, you know, I'm willing to be in compliance on whatever. If that's what it takes for the Airbnb and I decide to continue it, then yes, you know, I want to be in compliance.
Well, personally, I have very big concerns with mixing commercial rental overnight and a marijuana license, you know, frankly. But we'll take public comment at this time. Those who would like to address the board, please raise your hand. I'll recognize Dave Myler first. And I'm going to ask everyone to please come up to the podium. As you know, these are temporary meeting rooms for us, and that's the only way we can have you on the record.
Rachel, are we going to look at how many people so we can kind of determine a time frame so we...
Yeah, that's a great idea, Patty. How many people believe that they're going to make a comment? I know you can change your mind and jump in at the end, but how many people here would like to make a comment? I see one. Any others? Okay.
Oh, surprise.
I would encourage you to get your comments on the record now if you have comments. But Dave?
Thank you all. David Myler, and I'm here on behalf of the Cypress Mountain Ranch Homeowners Association, a company called Holland LLC, and the Turnbulls. All of my clients are, at least at this point in time, opposed to the application.
How many clients is that, Dave? How many clients in total?
There's 41 homeowners and 2 other clients.
So 43 clients.
Correct. And that's what, 5 minutes each?
We're not going to be interrupting the public
Just
comment.
kidding.
You guys can take notes and prepare to respond afterwards, but we're going to hear from everyone.
And I'm happy to answer questions as well if that would be helpful. We first learned about this application, honestly, last Thursday. So we've done an enormous amount of work over the last 4 or 5 days trying to get it as much up to speed as we can and be able to make some intelligent comments with regard to the application. I'm somewhat encouraged by Jeanette's comments that this is a conditional approval, which implies that there are going to be some difficult conditions, I think, that are going to need to be satisfied before this operation commences. Maybe a permit gets issued, but there's going to be a lot of hoops to negotiate before they actually get started. And that's a good thing, because there are an enormous number of issues that we think need to be addressed, and we're only going to talk about a couple of them today, because they're the only ones that we could really have the opportunity to research. I'd like to introduce Jan Rietdijk and Charlie Herter, who are on the board of directors at Cypress Mountain Ranch. One of the things that we have requested in my letter is a continuance, and maybe that was partly because we didn't understand the conditional nature of the request that's being made. But to be honest with you, I do think that would be a good idea. I think that the people who are directly affected by this proposal have been in the dark about it up until last Thursday. And I think that it would be a good idea to allow us an opportunity to do the investigation that we need to make meaningful comments and responses. I think it also, even though we understand the boundary issue, I think it makes sense to let the Emma Caucus weigh in on this. They haven't had the opportunity to do that. They represent us. They represent the most immediate neighbors. And I think the Emma Caucus has got some important things to say about this application. This is a complex issue, a complex application, and we're concerned about the obvious things like traffic and odors and the appropriateness of commercial agriculture, or whatever you want to call it, in a residential neighborhood. We're also concerned that the building being proposed may not be an agricultural building. Your code says an agricultural building is not a place where agricultural products are processed, treated, or packaged. Sounds like that's what we're doing here. So is this really an agricultural building? Maybe we need to look into that in a little more detail. What are the ramifications of outdoor growing, which is being at least contemplated? What are the impacts on wildfire and wildlife? What about adequate security? We've had a chance to look into none of that. This is a very remote location, and we regularly read about guards being attacked in these kinds of facilities. This one seems like a natural to me, and so we need to know more about that. There are two issues, however, that I think could be fatal flaws for the project, and we ought to talk about them a bit today. And this is as much for the benefit of the applicant as it is for all of you, because I think they would want to know about these things as well. And they have to do with access both across private property and the BLM and the water rights issues. And you've already addressed those to some extent, so I'm going to try not to duplicate efforts. But be that as it may, the proposed access to this property, as John pointed out, through the property owned by Holland LLC, which is the one I represent. If you can you click on that with your little... It's right there. Holland LLC owns that piece of property. There is an access road that passes through BLM, through Holland property, and into the Resnick property. The easement agreement that was granted back in '05 says that the grant is for a non-exclusive easement for vehicle travel and underground utilities for single-family residents. It's not for any other type of use. The applicant even acknowledges the grow facility is a separate use. It's on the same property, but it's a separate use. I don't think this language is ambiguous. I think the easement is not intended to be utilized for the type of use that's being proposed here. Specifically, it says no other uses shall be permitted. It goes on to say that grantees' use of the existing road shall comply with all federal, state, local ordinances and rules and land use regulations. Our use of that road, or the use of the road for an operation that it violates federal law, violates the easement. I think that to the extent that an applicant has to demonstrate that they have legal access in order to obtain this sort of a license, the applicant can't do that. And I don't believe I would say, based on my experience primarily in land use applications, and I know this is not a land use application per se, but all the impacts are land use related, my experience has been that the applicants have to prove that they've got legal access before the county's going to grant them an approval. Now, maybe a conditional approval that doesn't allow them to start until they resolve this issue might work. And it would also save them investing a lot of money only to find out that they don't have access. But I don't think the license should be granted until this issue is resolved. I don't think that the county should be putting the neighbors in the position of having to try to enjoin this use in order to protect their rights. There's plenty of precedent in this county for requiring proof of access. The other issue that, we also have a small piece of BLM land. If I can figure out how to make this work.
There
I'm
you
pressing the red one. What's
There you
that?
go. You got it. You had it. You just didn't see it on the screen yet.
It was.
Keep pushing. That last one you hit was the red light. Okay,
Oh,
now
there it
find
is. It's way over here.
Now find it. Here you are.
I can't find it. Anyway, you can see where the switchback is off of West Hopers Creek Road. There is a short piece
Oh, right there in that
driveway
corner.
that cuts through the BLM land. There is a permit allowing access to both of the lots, the Holland property and the Resnick property. That permit also contains language that says that the use of the road needs to comply with federal law. Same dilemma. Not only that, it's even worse because that little stretch of road across the BLM land provides access to the Holland property. And if the BLM revokes the permit, we don't have access either because it's being used to facilitate a use which is illegal under federal law. The Dinkle Lake option is an interesting one, and we haven't evaluated that, but it's my understanding that the Dinkle Lake Road is not allowed to be plowed in the winter. And I believe that there are some agreements with the Turnbulls that deal with plowing on Prince Creek Road up to the top where it intersects with Dinkle, and it involves the Dinkle Lake Road as well. So I think that's another issue that needs a little bit more investigation. And as Rachel pointed out, ownership is critical for the same violation of federal law issues that I'm raising with respect to the BLM access. With respect to water, I'd like to pass out a memo that we got. And Jeanette, if you want to pass that around, put that in the record for me. Oops, wait a minute, I need one of them.
Yeah.
Watch out for all our cords there, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah.
We asked Kevin Patrick, who you all know, who's a reputable water attorney, to take a look at the water rights associated with the Resnick property. And, you know, his conclusion is that the water rights are insufficient for the uses absent the application filing in water court proceedings to develop other water resources. And it's also Kevin's opinion that it's not likely that that water court proceeding is going to succeed. As he points out here, the two springs that they're relying on are quite junior. They're 1988 water rights that would be subject to call during much of the year, particularly during the irrigation system. Not a reliable source. These rights are not decreed for commercial use, and hence any use of the rights outside of the irrigation system would be prohibited. Diversion records indicate no historical irrigation use for the springs. This could even evidence abandonment. The senior ditch rights that they have in what's called the Buffalo Ditch are decreed solely for irrigation use within the historic irrigation system. They cannot be used year-round to provide irrigation for the plants. And he also points out that the county has a history of not granting final land use approvals for projects that lack a final decree from a water court evidencing an adequate legal water supply or uses that rely on hauling water. You know, I admire the applicant for saying we'll haul all the water that we need. But I think the problem is this. If their operation commences based on hauled water and they're unable to obtain a legal water supply for this operation, the hauling becomes the permanent solution for water. I don't think that's appropriate. And I know in other contexts, particularly subdivision, you can't even get a conceptual approval without proving up a legal and physical water supply. What's different about this? Why should this operation get started until and unless they have the water supply that they claim that they're going to be able to get?
Dave, we've let you go a little long because you're representing so many people, but if you could kind of wrap up, that'd be great.
I'm just about there. I think those are our main points. I think that the fatal flaws of this project have to do with access and water. And we would suggest that this application simply be denied and the applicant be directed to solve those problems and come back. If you're inclined to grant or to at least consider a conditional approval with these items listed as conditions, we would like to have the opportunity to come back after we've had a chance to study this and provide some additional comment that might be helpful to you in crafting conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Additional public comment. Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Liz Newman. I think I know everyone on the board. But I just wanted to give a little bit of history about the Emma Caucus area, even though we haven't really been able to meet about this issue. It just didn't really have the time. But of course, you know that the Emma Caucus was formed in 2008-2009, so well after the Crystal Valley Caucus. And unfortunately, due to a mapping error, these two properties were not included in our caucus area, even though they're not, you can't get to the Crystal Valley Caucus area from those properties in the winter because the road is closed. It's not maintained. Anyway, so we all thought that this property was in the Emma Caucus area, and this is the first that we've learned that they are not. So anyway, sorry. But the Emma Caucus was formed originally to preserve the rural and residential character of our ranching area, of our caucus area. And so we had several items that we included in our original master plan that we still focus on in our newly updated master plan, which we're just in the process of having finally approved. And they stress items that support our character, which include preserving our water quality and quantity. It's been an issue in the Emma area. Road conditions in our area are not always up to par, as we constantly let you know. And that's a big item in our master plan again, especially the top of West Soapers Creek Road, which is just almost always in unstable condition or substandard condition. We also have asked to limit the FAR possibilities in the Emma Caucus area, mostly because of the impact on our roads and our water quality. It's not a visual issue, which a lot of people find confusing. So it's not really the impact visually of a use that we're concerned about. It's more the impact on our water and our roads and, you know, the safety. This particular property and most of Emma is located pretty far from fire and police protection, and that was one of the other reasons that we were concerned about marijuana cultivation. We definitely don't have any dispensaries allowed in our area, but because there's no commercially zoned property in our area, but we've opposed many commercial uses in Emma, and most of those were closer to the highway, like along Emma Road, and I think all of you remember those incidences, but I can list them again for you if you want to know. But all of these reasons were mainly just to try to keep it as a residential area for families to live in, working families, Aspen and Snowmass and Glenwood, who live in the Emma area. So I just wanted you to kind of have that background. We really believe that the impact of this application would be felt solely by the Emma Caucus area, not the Crystal Valley area. And unfortunately, you know, this mapping error occurred and may not be easy to change, may never be changed, but I just want to impress on you that two wrongs don't make a right, and I really think personally that this application needs to be denied. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Liz.
Any additional public comment? Okay, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting and if you'd like to respond briefly to anything you heard, and then we're going to bring it back to the board for discussion.
Okay, I will try to do this as quick as possible. I wrote down a number of things. I guess the first thing is we've personally spoken with a lot of members of Cypress Mountain Ranch that we've known for a very, very long time who not only have expressed to us support over this project, but have also expressed specifically to my mother last night that it is not unanimous amongst the members of Cypress Mountain Ranch against what we're doing up there. The second issue, the issue of traffic, I have the most recent traffic numbers from the last study that Pickens County did that we got just recently, and the average amount of traffic on that road per day, West Cypress Creek Road, is 1,005 cars per day. So the standard deviation on that number is going to be such that like the extra 2 cars that we're proposing a day, if you were to sit on your porch and count cars every day, you wouldn't actually be able to tell that there was a new operation going on up there. As far as security goes, we are doing it in compliance with what the state says, and yeah, that entails fences and cameras that sounds, kind of scary and stuff. But it's just, it's to keep everybody safe. As to the BLM issue, this is something I think is interesting. There are many, many roads in this state that cross BLM. I-70 being one of them. It's safe to assume that many businesses, medical marijuana and recreational marijuana operations together probably utilize these roads, and the fact that they're doing that, I think, is part of a much bigger question, right, about the fact that Colorado has directly contradicted a federal law, and until the Attorney General office decides to have a fight over the 10th Amendment, and we're not at that point, until then we're not going to find out whether you can cross BLM land with these products, which is already happening in the state everywhere anyway. As far as the water, this document that you guys got, the memo here, first of all, I think we do have some access to the Buffalo Ditch, but ignoring that and just looking at the Galt Spring and the Denali Spring, I did some calculations here. There's 7.5 gallons in a cubic foot. I see we get 0.01 cubic feet per second and 0.1 cubic feet per second from each of those springs. If you multiply that by 60 seconds per minute, 60 minutes per hour, 24 hours per day, 30 hours per month, and then you add those two together, you end up with 2,132,000 gallons just in 1 month, which is, I think, arguably more than sufficient than the 6,000 gallons, I believe 6,000. That were 200 gallons per day, so 6,000, yes. There doesn't, as far as the caucus lines being drawn, I looked at some of them. It seems like there doesn't seem to be much of a governing principle behind that. If you look up there at you can see that it'll cross into, not in that map, but when I was looking at a map the other day, it looked like it crosses over the Crown to places that would only be accessible by Prince Creek Road, which, you wouldn't have access up West Cypress Creek to that area in the wintertime. And I think that's all I have to say. I don't know.
So yes, I can't say that there was a mapping error exactly. I believe that the reason I was put in the Crystal River Caucus in the first place was because no one else lived on the Dangle Lake Road when those caucus lines were drawn. I mean, maybe in '90 there were some people on the ranch, but it wasn't the 41 houses that are there now. As far as road impact, I would suggest that all of the new people living on the Cypress Mountain Ranch that weren't there when I moved there have vastly impacted my lifestyle as well. So, and I haven't risen up, and I've tried to embrace my neighborhood and enjoy them being there rather than being upset about the fact that they've impacted my lifestyle, which began as the lady living at the end of the road with no neighbors around me. So,
okay. It's built their private property. Well, thank you very much. We're going to return this to the board. If you have something really quick.
Super quick. I just want to say that, if we are approved for this, we are happy to open up our doors for people to come up there and we can host them, and we're happy for them to be able to check in on the process and provide their comments, which we will take seriously and address.
Okay.
And on that note, we're trying to do everything by the rules, and it goes without saying that there's a lot of medical or other type of grows, specifically very close to the Newman's houses, and they put out light pollution and have not the right practices. There's
Yeah.
grows all over Emma, and we're trying
We're
to...
not going to go into a comparative study. We know we have limited authority over some of the activities, particularly caretakers. Rim. Okay, we're going to come back to the board. It is now 1:40, and we have a lot of other items later, so we're all going to, be as succinct as we can. George?
So, thank you. So I want to really actually acknowledge and thank the applicant for coming forward for a conditional request, understanding that you might have to spend a lot of money just to come back to the board and be denied. So I think that was a smart move on your part to come before us for conditional, to see the temperature of the board and whether it's worth you pursuing, spending time and resources and dollars. I think we've heard a lot of the issues. There certainly has been strong opposition, not only from the letters that have come in, but also from at least what Dave Myler is representing. It's sort of a quirk of the boundary again, similar to what I mentioned earlier in terms of the Emma Road. Half the road, so one side is Pickett County, the other side is Eagle County. But everyone that lives there considers them part of the Emma Caucus area. The Eagle County Commissioners recognize that as well. This area is on, the address is West Silvers Creek Road. West Silvers Creek Road is in the Emma area. The Crystal Valley Caucus really has absolutely no impact at all on this particular growth site. All the impacts are going to be in the Emma area, and specifically on West Silvers Creek Road and the homeowners in Silvers Mountain Ranch. When we approved the growth site off of Old Snowmass recently, we expanded the ability to do an outside grow. We were concerned about security, and they've addressed that security. But they also mentioned that they've had several attempts at break-ins at that site. And that is actually very close to have access for public safety. In this case, if you have a break-in up here, the applicant either has to be very brave or a really good target shooter, because by the time the public safety would get up there, you'd have problems. So public safety is a concern. The maintaining the emphasis of the Emma master plan in terms of preserving the rural and remote agricultural character of the area, I think needs to be considered. Given all these other flaws in terms of having to look at access and water, I think as a conditional application, we should just deny this right now. If the applicant wishes to pursue some of these and come back to us, I think that's fine. But at this point, I don't think we should be leading the applicant on, having them spend a lot of dollars. We should just deny this conditional application at this point.
Okay, thank you, George. Additional comments? Patty?
Yeah, George, you're right. When we reviewed that other application on Lower River Road, they did say they'd had multiple attempts.
It's not on Lower River Road.
What?
It's not on Lower River.
Well, down that,
South River Road?
whatever, that other application.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The issue was the sheriff was sitting in the office, and for some reason the sheriff had never been notified of those. So I'm not sure if there were break-ins or not. But we do have very strict standards and policies for security at any of these sites. I think that I totally understand the need for the neighbors to have comments and have the opportunity to comment and be notified. This is an unusual circumstance to notify which caucus, both caucuses, another caucus boundary issue. I would not have a problem continuing this, allowing a 30-day public comment period to allow the Emma caucus and individual neighbors for or against to comment on this application. I would not have a problem going there if the board chooses to choose that, decides to select that option. As far as the conditions, I think they need to be very strict. If we were to do it a conditional approval now, or if we were to do it again in 30 days, or to do it originally in 30 days. I think the access to federal laws, the BLM, is a hurdle, and I think that that's something you would definitely need to vet out, as with the water issues. That's a long, expensive process, something you would definitely need to vet out. Kurt Dahl from Pickens County Environmental Health did say as a rec, he had some specific recommendations as far as odor, as far as conditions of approval, that, we've had odor issues with marijuana grows. We don't want to start with another one. So we've learned a lot from that. We can apply to this if we were to move forward with conditions of approval. Those would be the key issues for me. But I definitely don't have a problem with continuing this, allowing for full vetted public comment.
Thank you, Patty. Steve? Then we'll come to Mike.
I would like to continue this, instead of doing some kind of an approval with conditions. The really huge condition I could see is, what is the Dinkle Lake Road? Is it a county road? Can it be plowed? If it can't be plowed, then I don't think approving a marijuana site where they have to haul water in on it and they have no way to get the water over a road except on a snowmobile that isn't logical to me. And to me, it's obvious you can't go through the Hollins property because you would need their approval for that, and you don't have that. So by continuing this for a month or so gives the applicant a chance to do some more research into both the issues that have been brought up for the water and the road access. It also gives the Emma Caucus a chance to meet and talk about it. It would also give a chance for either the BOCC or Emma Caucus members to have a site visit there, if they so desire to learn more about the operation. And I personally would like to have a site visit before giving approval or denial of this, just to see. I've been to the end of your driveway many times, but I've never been up your driveway. I've never looked at it in terms of, coming off the Dinkle Lake Road, is that even possible or feasible? So I think you would need to get some preliminary engineering done on that to show that that would be feasible too. So that's what I would ask for from the board.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Michael?
Yeah, I would agree to a continuance. I'd make a motion to continue this hearing till September 28th.
Okay. Is there a second to Michael's motion?
I'll second Michael's motion.
Okay. Do you have any further comments, Michael?
No, this is not a thorough enough examination of the issue, so that's why we need 30 days to consider it and for the public to weigh in. So.
Thank you. I'll weigh in now. I will not support the motion. I will take a position of deny and start again. I think that there are far, far too many fatal flaws with this for my own personal taste. Come back to the water and the access, but neighborhood impacts weigh heavily on my mind on these, regardless of caucus lines. It's more about the neighbors, it's more about the setting, it's more about the remoteness to me and the security issues. When we denied the marijuana grow facility on Woody Creek Road, the Green Dragon application, a big part of that was the length of time it would take for police or fire to get to the facility. It really was not. It's in stark contrast to Silver Peak, which is very close to the Basalt Fire, Basalt Police. So that, to me, just location wrong is wrong. The water and water hauling, I think that is just a mess. As others have said, you don't want to approve something and end up with water hauling. It just would be wrong for the roads. And beyond that, you'd have to find someone willing to sell water, and a lot of those water contracts come from RUDI, and RUDI is a federal water provider. So that can be very I agree with the sentiment that if all of these things were resolved, we would have an application we could look at. But with, are those things going to be resolved in a month, in a hearing in a month? No, they're not. And so again, I'm to the point, similarly on other issues, where I'd rather send a straightforward and honest message about my position than to say, come back again in a month and we'll see then. This is one of the, I'd say, least professionally prepared applications that I've seen. You know, normally we get a schematic of the building, the facility, where the entry will be, where the storage and the cutting room will be, at least in the packet that we received. Perhaps
There is one.
there's additional. But I guess I would like to, in the future, make sure I see all the things in the application as they come forward. But I just, the water issue and the driveway issue, I have no desire to see us pushed in the position of saying, we'll approve a second driveway so that you can circumvent the agreement that you have for the primary driveway to the house. And look at all the concerns there. So I just see kind of one issue after another, that this is a really heavily used wildlife area. I'd be concerned about the conflict between wildlife fencing and security fencing on a 30-acre parcel. I just am not feeling that this one is appropriate. I have approved marijuana licenses before, and I've turned some down, and my sentiments just don't regard with this one. George?
Yeah, just quickly, I agree. I think with you, Rachel, I think this is certainly way premature, and I don't think a 30-day extension is going to be able to answer a lot of these questions. And I think we should just deny it right now. The applicant has heard these concerns that they wish to follow up and come back at some point with answers to these, then I think we can listen to it. But I don't see the reason why we would want to continue it at this point. I think we've heard from the residents. It just doesn't seem to be an appropriate place for this type of operation.
Patty?
I'm going to, again, support a continuance. The applicant has the opportunity to not continue, to withdraw their application, or to postpone it even further if they feel that they need more time. I think the conditions, if we did which is new for us, to do a conditional licensing approval, was very clear. They understand the undertakings that would mean, and until they had that, they would know clearly laid out what their conditions for a conditional approval would be. I would like to give them that opportunity to make that decision rather than just denying it at this time. The onus is on them to prove these things, and I think that in my mind, I think that it's only fair and honest to allow them the opportunity to continue it, try and get more information together, or make a decision on their own if they want to withdraw.
Okay, thank you. Any other further board discussion? We do have a motion on the table. I haven't heard any alternate motions.
Let's call the question, please.
Yeah, call the question. All those in favor of a continuance, please say aye.
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 All those opposed to a continuance, please play same sign.
Nay.
Nay. And Michael, did we hear your vote?
Yes.
Jeanette, you caught that? I did, okay. So how did it end up then? Did you vote in favor of the continuance?
Michael voted in favor.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear you up here. So this item is continued. Do we need a date certain on that?
I had September 28th.
September 28th. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to take a brief 5-minute break and then come back for the application for renewal, medical, and retail marijuana license, Cooper Mason.
Yes, sir.
Very quick.
Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Yeah.
You're getting good at this.
I thought there'd be a ton of people wanting to talk.
A bunch of different meetings. I don't have anything prepared for these guys.
That's okay. Hang in
Did one of you?
I think one's still over there, actually.
Every joint.
Where are you going? See, that's what I'm talking about. You know, we took Julia to
Was it nice to be with her for that?
Oh, yeah, it was totally cool. But, I mean,
She's such a great kid.
and changed it.
Oh, yeah. She like her book?
Yeah, she took it with her. She was bummed at herself for dropping it.
Oh, it really was. I did.
Anyways.
You know what? I dropped it.
Anyway,
She's
well, I
so
know, but she
cute.
takes care of the books, are like a big deal for her.
It's a great book.
I know, I do. I want to kind of want to read it too. I never.
I'll find my copy somewhere, but I'm thinking that if I go to the governor's for Christmas, to the governor's school.
Yeah, to them, right?
Yeah. It was. I'm very proud of her, and I gotta make sure that she gets recognized. I still don't have, I'll get it from you. I don't have the phone or her email. It's insane. We'll get it. We'll get it.
I'll tell you
Did you do anything in DC?
Yeah, we got there. We were kind of taking our time, and all of a sudden, it's like, no, we got to get that road. So.
And then you got there early.
Yeah, so we had plenty of time, but we got there early, so when I said, yeah, you can do it, and then when you get there, you can waste it.
Is it hard to leave her there?
I mean, I realized.
Not really, but it was because it was like, you know, we had to take care of business and like that.
Was she excited? She was nervous.
Oh,
really? Oh, yeah.
But then when you get home, you hear,
Roses.
you hear something that like,
I went by your house. It's hard to find those roses. They're out around the back corner.
oh yeah, yeah.
They're not in great shape.
Well, they're when they bloom.
Okay. Listen, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to clear your stuff so the next person can get set up. we're getting ready to start. If the next applicants can get up to the table, please. Okay, okay. Where's our grassroots cameraman? When we say quick 5 minutes, we mean quick 5 minutes. Joe, are you here for the Loge Peak?
I don't even know if there's going to be a conversation, but yes.
Because we received a letter from you, didn't we? Yeah, okay, I was just going to say, if you don't want to waste your time all day. Okay, grassroots, we're back going to tell us when we're on the air. Okay. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone for tuning in this afternoon. It is just about 2 o'clock. You're watching the Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. The next item we're going to attend to is the application for a renewal medical and retail marijuana license, Cooper Mason Ventures LLC. Jeanette, you're going to lead us off on this.
Thank you. Jeanette Jones, Deputy County Clerk. What we have before you today is a renewal application for Cooper Mason Ventures, Silver Peak Apothecary. I think we all know the history associated with...
Just 1 second. Can we pull that microphone a little closer? Thank you.
Okay. I think you all know the history associated with this. There has the application or the licenses was issued in 2014, and at that time, when the applicant started production, there was some odor issues. There's been several meetings since that, several meetings with the neighborhood, several meetings with the applicant, and I think we're in a state right now where that issue has been resolved. We have not had any complaints for quite a while now, and so I think what we will do is just jump to the key discussion items that I've listed on page 2 of your memo. And I'm sorry, with me is Jordan Lewis, and I believe Mike Woods is here also. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you. The key discussion items that I'll jump to real quickly is whether or not to continue the monitoring of odor from the facility. There is a memo in your packet from Kurt Dahl recommending that we cease that. Whether or not to continue the quarterly meetings associated with the odor issue and odor mitigation, whether or not to require a public hearing for renewal of the licenses, that'll be a year from September 24th, or if that process can be handled administratively as per the regulations, pending any additional issues. If there are any issues that arise, of course, it will come back to the board again for a hearing, and that's part of the regulations.
Thank you. And Jeanette, let me ask, just because of the last one, we had received so many letters as comment to the public hearing. Did we receive any letters to this public hearing?
No, we have not.
Thank you very much. Jordan, would you like to, do you have questions for Jeanette, please? I'm sorry about that, George.
I'm sure Jordan will address this, but one in your memo, you also said, with respect to the condition regarding an energy consumption report, the applicant would be prepared to speak to that condition at the hearing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
I believe you.
Jordan, you're up for whatever you'd like to say.
It's always great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Did you have an energy report, energy consumption report?
We've been providing information to Mona. We've had an ongoing dialogue, as we've explained to her, and I'll explain to you now. We've been through a transitional period, which we're still in. I think we agreed in our discussion with Mona that we were going to continue to gather and look at the information, and when we have sort of a comprehensive steady state, that would be the time to, to really put everything together. So everything's in flux at the moment as we speak due to the transitions this summer.
Okay. I think this may have come up when we were having our hearing about the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, which is a residential program primarily, and discussions as we're all having about how do we reduce our carbon footprint. And the energy usage of grow facilities is something that's pretty severe. I don't think we have any standards at this point in time to say it has to be reduced to this, or it can't exceed that, or has to be generated by solar or anything like that. So I'm not sure, George, where you wanted to take that, but I do agree it's something that we have talked a little about addressing in our codes going forward.
Yeah, it was in the memo, and I know that CORE is working with Jordan, and I also know that our ComDev is looking at how we're going to expand our building codes to address energy use in lots of different areas.
Yes, it may be something that upon future renewals of the license, there will be new requirements. I think that's the easiest way to explain it.
I would, if I can just comment on that for a moment. Like many things that we've done, we're doing things for the first time. And if you survey the landscape in Colorado and you look at how many producers are actually using greenhouse technology, it's less than probably 3% of the total production. Our investment in this facility, which has turned out to be mostly R&D investment, it's significant. And we've done that because I've been trying to find a model which is better than the warehouse model. And it's been a very, very expensive process because we went through this. We had to, re-engineer everything. And all I ask the board is that, for somebody like myself to innovate and to continue to innovate, it's very hard to do that when there's additional burdens put on us financially. Being in the valley to begin with, where land, labor, everything. I mean, the costs are extreme. And so I would encourage the board to consider that if we want Pitkin County to remain at the forefront of innovation in this technology and others, that there needs to be some understanding of what's involved in that process.
Again, my comments were simply a heads up.
Okay.
It would be worth looking at as we go to for your interest, as we go forward with the energy code adoption. We adopt our energy code every 2 years, roughly, sometimes 3 years. It's a universal energy code, and we're looking at sustainability components. I don't think anyone is going to be interested in adopting a code that puts anyone out of business or is an undue burden, but and certainly only in situations that are going to be applied across the board. But, this is just a heads up that we're looking at energy consumption going forward in any number of areas.
Understand.
Okay. Steve?
Commenting on that same thing, I remember asking if you had considered doing a climate battery system to take the hot air and put it underneath, in the...
Yes, we did. We looked very closely at
underground, and you had decided not to do that. Yep. Now, if you were... Now, not that we're going to go back and require you to do that now, don't worry about that, but looking forward, if someone else were to build a greenhouse grow operation in Pitkin County or anywhere, knowing what you know now, would you recommend they do that? Because then I think that could deal with a lot of their heat problem, cut down their natural gas use for keeping the temperature correct, and maybe help deal with the odor problems also, perhaps.
Man, if I could do that. It sounds wonderful in theory, and I think that there's a tremendous amount of potential with geothermal batteries, and we did look into it. For our application, it wasn't appropriate then, and if it would be appropriate in our new configuration, I can't say. But once again, these are very complex systems, as you all saw, and geothermal. The takeaway that we had when we were looking into it is that geothermal is effective when you're looking at small deltas, temperature differentials. When you have, large temperature differentials, and keep in mind that we're maintaining an environment within 3 to 5 degrees year round. When you have large temperature differentials, it becomes less efficient. That was the takeaway that I got when we were looking into it. So I don't claim to be an expert on that, but I think that, if I was somebody looking to get into this industry, I would certainly want to have the flexibility to adopt the best technology, not have some mandate for something that might not be applicable to a situation.
Yeah, again, I think the energy is a conversation for a future day and a lot of different approaches. Some folks are offsetting their energy use by purchasing solar power or wind power programs through the providers like Holy Cross Electric or other opportunities. Other people are physically putting it into their plants. So we'll be taking a look at that in general as part of our larger code in the future. I think we should come back to the key discussion items, and I just wanted to kind of update the board after this item. We have 9 more items. Okay, thank you. We have 9 more items, and so to end by 5, that gives us about 20 minutes each. So we'll try to stay on focus with all of our items. The 3 questions that have come forward is whether or not to continue the monitoring of the odor from the facility, and a variation of that would be on the same schedule that we're doing now. The second is whether or not to continue the quarterly meetings, or again, perhaps to put them on a different schedule than now, and whether or not to require a public hearing for renewal of the licenses, or whether that process can be handled administratively contingent upon no issues arising prior to renewal. And I think that is also how we had put it in our marijuana licensing code, that if an operation was going forward smoothly with no complaints, similar to liquor license approvals, that could be done administratively as opposed to coming before the board each time. Michael, did you have a comment or question before we go
Jordan,
to these 3?
you mentioned that you were in transition, but you didn't make it clear to me what you meant by you were in transition.
Well, we went from a passive air system to a water cooling system, supplemental water cooling system this summer, which has basically come online within it's been online for probably 4 weeks of the summer. So we don't know what impact that's going to have. So they're just and that's a significant
So
change.
you were in some sort of technical transition within your operations, what you were saying?
Yes, a big one. I mean, it was a big infrastructure project. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At the risk of being forward, I was going to suggest that we move from quarterly meetings to a biannual, twice a year, and then perhaps on the next renewal move to less than that, if there's no issues.
I was thinking just on the annual, unless issues arose, because we didn't really have any issues, and I think if there's an issue that arises, we will have a biannual or whatever meeting, and I would rather do it that way, but.
Okay, we have one twice a year, we have one annual. What's your thought on that one, Steve?
I would say also, if issues arise, and the same would go for the monitoring, we could discontinue the monitoring. If odor issues arise, we need to at least temporarily reinstate a monitoring on the odor. We could, if issues arise, we could go back, call a meeting at that time as needed. Same way with the 3rd item on the public hearing for renewal of the license. If there have been no complaints and there are no issues, then I think it could be done administratively. But if there are any complaints or requests for a public hearing, then we automatically would do that.
Okay. George?
I think we need to continue monitoring the odor. I think that's an obligation and responsibility and a commitment that we made to the neighbors, and to discontinue that, and then if a problem comes up, there's no records or no history. So for me, that's the most important thing. I think we could do a biannual or just an annual. I think it should be a public hearing. We already know that we want to have Jordan come back, hopefully within the next year, to talk about the energy use study. And so that should continue.
Okay. So monitoring and the quarterly meetings. I'm just trying to keep track of where we are now.
I didn't say quarterly.
No. I said I'm trying to keep track of the 3 questions.
Yeah.
So George, what did you feel about the quarterly meetings that are currently required?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I think an annual meeting, and unless there's issues that arise.
Okay. Again, let's try to get a consensus on that one. Annual meeting?
I only commented on the one, so I will agree with George. And I think because of the issues we've had in the neighborhood, as much as I think that it might be burdensome, I think we should continue the odor monitoring until, let's get one more year of to make sure this great new technology is working, and then we can discuss that again. But I think that's protective of the neighborhood. Do the odor monitoring for one more year, bring it back on an annual basis next year. You get to talk in a minute.
Yeah. Steve, what was your,
Well,
again, just to, what, quarterly meetings, yes or no, or a change on that schedule? I want to.
Well, I'd say no to quarterly, but I see George's point on having an annual meeting, and also that gives the public a chance to, to have input on an annual basis, and I can see the value in that.
Okay, thank you. Michael, would you like to weigh in on the
The issue of the odor monitoring is actually to separate out where the odor is coming from, and because we could get complaints about odor, but we wouldn't know what the source of it was. The assumption has always been that it was Jordan's operation, but we're not exactly sure of that. So I think for the protection of Jordan's facility and the integrity of his facility, you'd have to have monitoring. Otherwise, you'd get complaints that might not necessarily be connected with his, and he'd have no way of asserting that he was odor-free. So I think we have to continue that. And an annual meeting is fine with me, an annual public meeting.
Okay, thank you. Annual, and yes on monitoring. And then should that annual meeting would be public hearing. What I'm getting from the board's discussion is that we would like to condition this renewal application on eliminating the need for quarterly meetings, having the annual license renewal be a public hearing, which is, again, where we can hear any concerns throughout the year. And there seems to be an interest in continuing the monitoring. I would note that we currently are at a monitoring schedule. It looks to be about 9 times a month. And I mean, I'm just going from the logs that we have here, which, to be clear, show no odor issue from this facility. 1 second. And so before we hear from Jordan, I'd just like the board to consider there is an expense to the business, whether or not that schedule could be reduced from 9 times a month to something else more like once a week, because then it would reduce the cost but still provide those sort of reliances that Michael and others have looked at. So I just want people to consider that, where we are today versus is there a reduced standard that could make a difference? And Jordan has his hand up. Jordan?
Yeah, I would request that the board consider the financial burden on my business. It's, I understand it's protective, and I want it to continue, but I also feel that I shouldn't be bearing the sole cost of this at this point in time. So I'm open to any reasonable suggestion, but I've got a lot of things that I'm trying to make up for now, and this is just an ongoing expense, and it really, I need to find ways to reduce these items.
Thank you for that comment. Board, Steve and then Patty?
Since Kurt had recommended discontinuing the odor monitoring, could we hear from Kurt on his reasoning?
Yeah, sure. Kurt, be sure to, how about the podium where there's a microphone? Thank you.
Excuse me.
Kurt Dahl, Picken County Environmental Health Officer, manager. My recommendation was based on, we have almost a year's worth of data, and it is valuable in the fact that it does not indicate odor. And I did not believe that that was going to change, that we were going to continue to find that. Where we've had odor indicated to us, we had 2 complaints over the entire 1-year period since they've implemented the system. Now, we weren't able to determine whether or not that actually was originating from their facility. But I did want to point out, and I apologize it was not in the memo, that we can continue to utilize the complaint line that was previously set up. That is set up to send a text out and email to myself and our odor monitor. Now, if that is something that the board would like to do, then I would need to confer with the odor monitor as well to make sure that that's something he might be available to, depending on, and I told him that I would follow up with him once we had this meeting as to what the board desired in terms of odor monitoring. So he's has some availability, and I just need to give him some direction. But that is one of the pieces I did want to bring up. We certainly could continue to do that if that was your desire. But I felt like given the previous logs, that there wasn't evidence there that we were going to receive previously, because this is completely random, once a week again, or once a week random. I'm not sure that that's going to provide us enough data to really be accurate either. So, a complaint basis might be a more accurate piece to, at least in terms of investigations.
Okay, questions for Kurt, Patty?
Yeah, I just think that we could live with that, as long as we had something in effect. Maybe it's not the 9 times a month somebody goes out and runs around with a monitor, but that we have an actively and a well user-friendly system for registering a complaint, dates, times, locations, and then as some kind of a follow-up. I would be comfortable with that.
That's kind of like an on-call system.
Yeah.
If you're able to line up. that's just Patty's suggestion. We'll discuss that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you for weighing in on that, Patty. Any other questions for Kurt or comments on this item? Michael?
Well, the difficulty with the complaint system is you don't know what they're complaining about. It might be an odor, but it could come from a neighbor that's growing, and you just don't know. So the idea of monitoring Jordan's operation is you've isolated that operation as being odor-free. That's the important part of it, the monitoring. The complaint part is much more difficult, and it's unfair, quite frankly, to Jordan. If the neighborhood is complaining about odors emanating from who knows where, it's just unfair to put him at risk for it. So I can agree to a reduced schedule of monitoring, but I think we have to have monitoring.
Rachel, can I just respond?
Well, now, please, 1 second. I just want to clarify, there is the ability right now for someone to call the complaint line, and then that would trigger an additional monitoring episode. Is that correct? That they would try to get up to look at, is it coming from Jordan's, or no, it's not coming from Jordan's, when a complaint is made on the complaint line?
Correct. So there is a text that's generated right now that goes to myself and the odor monitor, and then it's communication between the two of us as to who's in the best position to follow up. And then I also have my staff member, Brian Dougherty, who is maybe available to help us follow up as immediately as we can. It is a challenge because obviously we have conditions, but to the best of our ability, that's the intent of the line.
Just for me to analyze it, we do have 9 inspections a month now, but those are relatively random. They're not a complaint-based inspection. So they could be there on a Tuesday and someone thought they smelled something Wednesday night. It wouldn't do us any good in terms of record keeping or proving where it came from. The current system does have an on-call type of feature when a complaint comes in that goes to people to see if they can catch it at the time. They may or may not be able to. The odor could have dissipated by the time they get there. But again, to determine where the source seems to be. So to my mind, removing the monitoring it isn't necessarily reducing the effectiveness at all, because it's the same complaint system, and right now it is a shot in the dark. Will he monitor on a day by chance when there's some odor escaping? It's not based on anything other than that. Just a chance of throwing the fishing line in and seeing if there's anything biting today. So that's why I could, at the very least, want to see it limited. I think Patty's suggestion that it could be reduced is significant. It's a good idea. Michael, does that assist? Again, as I said, the monitoring is just so shot in the dark about we already do the complaint based, so it's not really a shift to a new system. It's just taking part of the required weekly shots in the dark away.
No, a reduced schedule is fine with me, but I think you have to keep it, because you have to know that there's no, at least on those particular days, that there's no odor emanating from his site. And so it keeps him essentially with clean hands. Because the difficulty we know in Holland Hills is there's other grows going on and other complaints. So neither one is perfect, but maybe we don't need 9 times a week, 9 times a month, but we need something just to make sure that the operation is monitored. That's all. That's all we're doing.
Okay, thank you. George, what are your thoughts on the monitoring?
Yeah, I think we can. I think I'm comfortable having reduced, but I think we have to have an ongoing log, and I think that's a commitment we made to the neighborhood. And frankly, it's a cost of doing business.
Okay, Steve.
Having an ongoing logging system on a reduced basis, I think would be all right, because that would add to the body of baseline. You know, all of these reports with no odor detected helps Jordan in the long run, and it is some expense. And I'm going to suggest, if we do get odor complaints from the residents there, that maybe at Picken County's expense, we have somebody go and they try to track down where in the neighborhood. So they're not just going around the border of your property, but they go over and try to actually find where the odor's coming from. And I don't, somebody with a good sense of smell, or if we can get an odor detecting device, if any of those come on the market.
Steve, that's a great suggestion. I think it's something for our board to take up separately from this application. I would request that Kurt talk to the individual we currently have doing the monitoring and find out what a price tag would be, or range, if we were to separately contract with him to help us pinpoint new odors within the Holland Hills neighborhood. So we'll go there. And the next thing I'd like to do is...
Wait, Rachel. So
Yes.
then we reduce the monitoring on the premises to once a month, 12 times a year?
I
Or
don't
is
think
it
we're
totally
there
eliminate
yet.
that?
I was
I'm
trying to
just-
pull together if we have a full motion, but we have a public hearing, and I'd like to open the public hearing now first. We're going to debate that one topic after the public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to comment on this renewal application? There being none, I will close the public hearing.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and so that's a good sign to begin with. And again, this comes up annually, so if we have another successful year, perhaps we see it eliminated entirely. Let me ask the board, how many people would like to go down to monitoring 4 times a month?
It'd be fine with me.
That's
Yeah,
fine,
that's fine.
that's fine. Okay. How many
I'm
people
not
would like to
agreeing.
go down to 1 time a month?
I think 1 time a month would be sufficient.
Just to put numbers, I mean, it's costing me close to $20,000 a year.
We're hoping to cut that in half right now.
Could we play the football rules where
But
it's not me?
it's good information.
Does-
It's good information. We appreciate that. But you've heard our discussion thus far.
Yeah.
How many people would like to go down to 1 time a month?
I think I lost that one.
Once every 2 weeks. Anything? Okay.
4 times a month.
Yeah, we're 4 times a month, once a week. I would like to solicit a motion to approve the application of renewal for the medical and retail marijuana license, Cooper Mason Ventures LLC, with the modifications to the prior license that we will not have quarterly meetings in the future. We will only have an annual public meeting for renewal, and of course, if there are complaints that come in the meantime, we can call an additional meeting as needed, and that the monitoring can be reduced to 4 times a month, approximately on a once-a-week schedule.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
You
it.
still have another 2 hours on our agenda.
Oh, I'd love to stay.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I have
We're
other
now
things
going
to
to
do.
move on to the emergency ordinance authorizing a communication use lease agreement with the U.S. Forest Service for the Loge Peak communication sites within the Aspen Highlands ski area. Kara.
Hello. Kara Silvernagle with manager's office. Before you today is an emergency lease, or an emergency ordinance, excuse me, for a lease with the Forest Service regarding the Loge Peak Tower.
Thank you.
Do you have a map you can put up? So.
George.
Thanks, Carol. That's good enough.
So here's the map of where the new tower is being proposed with the Forest Service. This is on the very top of Highlands Peak, Loge Peak, sorry, at Highlands. What you have on the graphic up above is the gray box to the top is where the tower is going to be built. That is actually the existing site of where one of the existing towers is. I believe that was the Forest Service tower. No, I apologize. That was the Ski Coast Weather Station tower. And then just to my left, kind of where the arrow is, I don't have a pointer, where it says black gray and where that arrow is pointing to is approximately where the existing guide wire Forest Service tower is. Thank you. So kind of right here. And that tower, both towers are going to be taken down and with just one tower being built right there, a 4-post tower. In the packet, it is a 14-foot tower. The decision memo from the Forest Service says 15-foot, but it is a 14-foot tower. That's what's been approved, and that is what is going to be built. In addition, streamlining all the conduit, I guess, of the radio infrastructure and telecommunication piping that needs to go is there. It's going to be cleaned up and put into 1 to 2 different pipings. And then all the radio equipment that's been a strong partnership with SkiCo is going to be in the Ski Patrol headquarters facility in the basement down there. And then next year, SkiCo is working to actually build an addition to that facility to house the restrooms as well as coordination for the loss of space that Ski Patrol has gotten by sharing the space with us for the radio equipment. And so before you today is an emergency ordinance, mostly just due to timing between working through multiple government agencies and getting signatures from the Forest Service supervisor in our process. And so that by signing the emergency ordinance today, it allows us to move forward with construction.
Thank you. And just to clarify for the ordinance, this is not a public hearing today. It is a first reading, and we'll have a confirmatory public hearing on September 14th. We have received a letter in support of the application by Mr. Wells, who's here, so I appreciate you weighing in on that. And again, the nature of the emergency is the timing and the construction seasons, and essentially the lease agreement just finally kind of hitting us last week before after we were actually not in regular session. So, board members, questions, comments, or motions? George.
Kara, I know that one of the goals of this was to be able to provide access up to Maroon Creek, specifically up for emergencies up towards the Bells. Will this provide any ability up Castle Creek for future cellular and broadband access?
Absolutely. It's one of the goals of our broadband effort that this site is going to be one of those primary towers. Not only does it link to dispatch, but also links in with that microwave capacity and connectivity. And so some homes within Castle Creek likely have line of sight and may get direct service from a provider that may choose to come onto the tower, but more than likely, as we look to our broadband plan, is that this will serve as a relay down to a small site within the valley floor that then can cover a wider breadth of homes. And so where we're at right now is we've been focused on building the tower and getting public safety up there, and then we're working as part of our outreach with broadband is working with the service to providers to try and identify who would be interested in this site moving forward.
So then with microwave uses along the valley floor, would you anticipate we'll be able to provide service, or a provider will be able to offer service all the way up to Ashcroft?
That will depend on the provider's business model. I'm not sure how many towers. I don't know how that looks as far as what Loge looks down into directly, but we can obviously have that conversation as we start reaching out to providers, if that is a focus of the commissioners, as well as reaching the homeowners too, to provide that service.
Well, there's homeowners up in Ashcroft.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Kara, I was curious about the conduit going from the patrol shack to the towers. We talked yesterday about the armored ones up on Elephant Mountain. Is this going to be armored cable? And the reason I'm concerned, anywhere you have potentially snowcats around and thin snow cover, the grousers on the snowcat could destroy a plastic conduit or something if they started, chewed into it. If a snowcat would happen to drive by there.
Okay.
Right. So unfortunately, this does not have the contour lines. The best I can describe is a snowcat could not get up here. This is on the ridge, actually above where the terminals are. I scrambled up there yesterday. If their snowcat could get up there, it's a whole nother technology. But as well as this conduit is not going to house any power, AC power. All it is housing is such as the microwave path tubes that actually carry that information technology through there. So this is not going to be a fiber line. Oh, it just went dead. A fiber line or AC power. It is only housing basically the cables that connect the equipment that is in the patrol up to the actual tower. All the power is going to be housed down at the patrol shack. And then, as I mentioned, this is the one place where it could potentially be on a road. It will be buried underneath this road right next to the patrol shack, which it's not right now. So it will be buried right there, and then once it gets to the ridge, it will be above ground in some kind of cabling, but is not exposed to any
Then the electrical
traffic.
power, is it on a landline, or does it come off the generator there at the patrol shack?
It's on the landline that the patrol shack receives, and then the
Just a backup in case the power goes out.
Exactly.
Then this generator would kick in and our system would continue working.
Exactly, and that's one of the requirements of the public safety system, is that you do have a backup generator. So that generator will support the public safety infrastructure only, not actually generator for the patrol shack.
Okay. Thank you. Again, is there a motion?
I'll make a
Move to
motion.
approve. Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, Michael can have the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Thank you
Kara.
very much for your hard work on this major and significant project, Cara. The next item is the resolution for Renewable Energy Mitigation Program, REMP, funding for 2016-2017 core programs and grants. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon. I've had a busy afternoon today. So we're here, Marty Treadway and I and Cindy Hubin are here for the first reading of the resolution for the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program funding for 2016-2017 core programs and grants. We had a pretty thorough conversation, I think, last week about our request and about the programs that we're going to be delivering should we receive approval for this funding. And so if you have any questions, I'll just make a note that we revised the resolution that we requested to reflect our conversation, or what we interpret as our conversation and the decision and the direction, to allow for some flexibility in the funding for Pitkin County. There are 3 projects suggested for funding. That includes a PV system at the landfill, a PV system at the County Public Works facility, and then some energy efficiency funding for the sheriff's remodel. And so how I just restructured that resolution was to lump those 3 projects together, the total amount of $230,500 into one amount, so that we could look at what the sheriff's facility remodel would use. I remember John had said that in about 4 weeks you'll get some final details about the cost of the project, and so we can say, would it benefit from the $43,000 that was originally recommended for funding, or does it need some more to be able to get a greater efficiency level and make this that exemplary building that we know you all want to build? And then, so we would reduce the amount of funding that would go either to the Public Works building or to the landfill project, and look at some other funding opportunities like CPACE, which is next on our agenda as a potential funding source. So that's the change. It doesn't change the total amount of the grant awards that we've requested for funding of $498,500. It just allows for some latitude within the total amount that would be allocated for Pitkin County projects. Other than that, everything remains the same as we presented it last week.
Okay, George?
And Mona, you presented this to City Council, and did they approve this?
We did. We went before them Monday night, and they approved this resolution. And we submitted the resolution in time for for them to see the revised version that you are now looking at as well.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. This is not a public hearing. We have discussed this pretty thoroughly in a work session. Are there additional comments or questions from the board? And we will, of course, be having a second hearing.
September 14th.
Public hearing then. So.
I make a motion to approve.
Well, second.
Okay. Any further comments?
I'll make a comment. I won't be here on September 14th, and I just would like to say that this is really awesome, the different projects that we can support using this money, and I think that we really have a good package of things this year that are approved. And just to note for the public, and we talked about this last week, that a lot of the projects that are showing to receive zero money on this thing we're passing today, they're actually going to be able to get money from CORE through another way, so they're not being totally cut out of the money.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Steve. That's a great point.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Stay right in your seats, because now we're going to hear about the resolution to opt into Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, CPACE.
Right. So this is the first reading of the resolution and the contract as well for to authorize participation in the Colorado New Energy Improvement District. And what this will allow is commercial property assessed clean energy financing, which means that a commercial property owner would be able to improve the energy efficiency or add a renewable energy system to the property, access up to 20 years in financing, and then that would be part of the property assessment that's annually charged or assessed to each property owner. So we've got several counties who are participating. Pitkin County would be able to participate in this by opting in. It's an opt-in as opposed to opt-out process for the state of Colorado. And it really, there will be some work involved for the county assessor and the county staff, but 1% will be charged additionally for each project, and that will be paid back to the county for its administrative costs associated with administering CPACE.
Great.
So if you have any questions.
Patty?
I have a question, and I apologize if we discussed this and I just don't remember. Did we run this by the county assessor's office and the county treasurer by chance? And they're all okay because they were the ones that would be administering this program? Okay, I'm good.
Yes.
Good question. Other comments? Steve?
Yeah, I was curious about who is the actual person or people administering it, and I didn't know if CORE was going to be involved in any of the administration or if it's just county staff, so I was curious about that too.
CORE would not be involved in the actual administration of the program. We'd be involved in outreach and marketing for the program, but it would be county staff. And it would be the treasurer, whoever sends out the annual assessment, and probably some person within that staff, because there's a report that needs to be filed annually with the state. So.
Yeah. Okay. And this is from quite a while ago, more about the residential pace, but I recall very clearly discussions with the treasurer where he said that, property tax is the most assured collection vehicle of any type of debt obligation there is, very, very low default rate, and that the same cure exists for not paying your regular property taxes. So that's the large consideration for any commercial property that wants to go into the program, take advantage of the energy saving dollars.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have further questions, Steve?
Well, just a comment. I saw an article and I just wanted to confirm. It said Eagle County was the first and maybe the only county in the state that had moved forward on the CPACE program. Is that true?
No, Boulder's had it in place, Adams also, and there's a couple of other counties. Adams, I'm blanking. Adams, so it would be Adams, Picken, Eagle, Boulder, Broomfield, and I think that's it for right now. But there's another.
Well, that's good. That's what this article said, and it didn't.
It's incorrect.
It didn't sound right to me, but I wanted to just find out.
No, it's incorrect. Adams, Broomfield, and Boulder are ahead of Eagle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would be the 5th county then to
Right.
join the program.
Right.
Thank you. George?
Yeah, I think this is great to be able to offer this to our businesses, and hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to offer a residential PACE program as well.
That would be good. I've been doing a little research, and Sonoma County, there are some counties in California that actually, and one in Missouri, that actually have a residential PACE program in place. They've gone forward with it despite, and actually the federal government, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're softening their stance on PACE, and they're moving forward with it. So there has been some success in Sonoma County and other counties in California that had just said, it all depends on who has financed your home. If it's and they own, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac own about 60% of the mortgages across the country. So if you find those 40% that either have a different lender or paid cash for their homes, then you could actually do a PACE project. So.
And I just forwarded Mona email this morning with a webinar on PACE and working with lenders.
Yeah.
Patty?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, and it's my understanding that the reason that we have this program in Colorado is thanks to Senator Gil Schwartz.
That's correct.
She was very instrumental in this. That is Senator Gil Schwartz, who is now our congressional district candidate, and we want to thank her for her involvement and really pushing this forward. And I'm really glad that Pickens County can now join in.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it sounds like time for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion or comments by the board? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and your
Back in
patience.
September.
Okay, the next item is the ordinance for the acquisition of Lazy Glen Open Space Bridge easement. I see Matt here for that, and just please give us a little introduction. You go ahead, Matt, I got catch.
Matt Adeletti, Acquisition Manager for Open Space and Trails. I have a map that I wanted to bring up here.
Here's a better map.
Know this parcel well.
This is the first reading for the acquisition of an easement. The easement will be used for construction of a bridge and access. The access is in 2 parts. And let me back up. The easement is going to be with the county and with the Lazy Glen Homeowners Association. One of the access points would be a pedestrian point from the RTD, the RAFTA, RTD, yeah, the RAFTA bus stop here, and it would be pedestrian only along this length of the road. From here, there would be this easement area here will be where the bridge landing will be, and is also for vehicular access, which can come off of this area, this entrance here, and come along this part of the dirt road, which is actually in the CDOT right-of-way, and then into the Lazy Glen open space. And the bridge to be built would cross the river right in this area here. We've been in negotiations with the Lazy Glen Homeowners Association folks, and this is something that they've been asking us for years to to build, and now that we've purchased the Lazy Glen property back in, it was last year, I think it was in May, or actually it was in April when we purchased it. One of the reasons, well, it was multiple reasons. It was for agricultural use, for wildlife use, and also for recreational use. And by creating a bridge in this area, we're going to be able to have the folks who live at Lazy Glen property, this community, access not in through the Lazy Glen property, but onto the Rio Grande Trail. And this way they can link communities. And so by building this bridge, it's just one of our wonderful projects that we've been wanting to do for a while. And so the staff asks the commissioners to approve the first reading for this ordinance.
Okay, great. Thank you. Patty?
Oh, well, I am excited to see this finally coming before us because, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was maybe 10 years ago that we actually walked that parcel before we purchased the property across the river, but we walked that from the Rio Grande Trail coming down. We walked every aspect through the thickets and down the cliffs and over stumps to try and figure out the best access. So I'm excited that we're finally able to work this out. And I've heard from the residents at Lazy Glen. They are excited. I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's a great access and much needed, and it's beautiful. So I appreciate it coming forward to us now.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Patty. Steve?
Matt, is there that access off of Highway 82 for automobiles, that's the existing driveway to the log house now, or is there an existing
The old
road?
greenhouse.
Where there was a greenhouse and the log house there, is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure about the houses there, but I think
Yeah, that's right.
maybe Dale can answer that.
That's right, Steve. It's how the nursery used to access.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like a new road cut onto Highway 82 that...
No, there's not going to be any new access points that are built up.
Then also in the packet, there was, you talk about it actually has to do with the management plan on the other side, but it mentioned two possibilities for the trail from the bridge going up to the Rio Grande Trail. And I would favor doing it mentioned a steeper one with stairs or a more gradual one, and I would just weigh in for the more gradual one that bicyclers or people with walkers or whatever would have the easiest time getting up there.
Okay, good.
George?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off of Steve's comments. When you're looking at the access up the Rio Grande, you had possible stairs, but rather than stairs, would it be feasible to do a ramp somehow? So it'd be, again, easier for bicyclists and for disabled people.
Sure, and actually Lindsay Utter, our project manager, is here, and I'd like to have her answer that.
Just to clarify, it's not proposed as an either-or scenario. The issue is that you can see the bridge from the Rio, but the Rio is quite a bit higher, and we just assume that some people will always try to take the path of least resistance, which would require stairs. But the plan is to construct an ADA route, or as close as we can get to, that would go through the property and connect to the Rio Grande Trail. So two scenarios, one being providing the shortcut route that people will take, and then the true trail connection for multi-use going through the property at an easy, steady grade.
And then one other question. So then in the wintertime, because in wintertime that trail gets groomed by cats, so for people who want to utilize this from Lazy Glen, rather than having to tromp through feet of snow, how will we accommodate them?
So the management plan, it calls for a groomed loop on Lazy Glen that would need to work with any lessee, as well as grooming to the bridge. We're not planning for the bridge to be groomed, but that, Lazy Glen residents could get to the bridge, get across the bridge, put on their skis and go. Or they could ski across the bridge. It just won't be groomed.
Great.
Good question.
Thank you. And this isn't a public hearing, but I'm wondering if that's someone from the Lazy Glen Homeowners Association who wanted to support us, or, okay, no, I wasn't sure. It's been several years since we've seen their reps in the room. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing acquisition of a bridge and access easement from the Lazy Glen Homeowners Association. So thank you again for bringing this forward.
Yeah, this is something I think we're all really proud of and really glad to see happening. So, Thank you very much for your hard work, and thanks to the Lazy Glen homeowners. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Here we go. The next item is the recognition of the Snowmass Creek Caucus. John Ely, you're still down as a presentation on that.
I will excuse myself right now.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. We will miss you, and we'll let you know it's not going to be as long, I think,
I'll be
as
close.
yesterday. Okay. Why don't you give us a brief introduction for people who didn't watch our broadcast yesterday?
This is a continuation of discussion and deliberation of a proposed action to the Board of County Commissioners recognizing a new caucus within the county, proposed Snowmass Creek Valley, or Snowmass Creek Caucus. The request has been brought forward by Jan Martin, who is a qualified elector within the proposed caucus area. The board's packet and information materials are the same for today as they were yesterday. A copy of the proposed and recommended resolution recognizing the caucus is contained within the packet, and I don't really have any other presentation.
Okay, thank you. Patty?
Yeah, I just have a procedural question. Did we not have a motion that we continued, so that motion is still alive and on the table? We motioned
We
Michael.
would continue the vote itself to today, and
Yeah.
so there, we're
So
going to
we
have
still
that
have a
vote.
motion to approve the caucus separation that Michael made. Jeanette, I believe?
No, there was a substitute motion, Patty, to have the vote today. So we will.
I
vote-
know that, but we had not saying we voted, I'm saying we had a motion on the table that we continued to today.
That's correct.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that that motion is still live.
That's correct.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I'm getting
That's
at.
why we have to vote today.
And I'm going to make further comments. We had a lot of further comments that came in through the night, through the morning. We have quite a stack that continues to grow. I know that we have a scheduled second reading and public hearing for September the 14th, and I am going to support Michael's motion and move this forward on second reading, move this forward on this reading to second reading on the 14th.
Thank you. George?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that what has led up to this is, to some extent, some poor communication or lack of communication, which has led to mistrust, which has led to disenfranchisement, and that's been really unfortunate. And I had made a recommendation to see whether the two sides could address those concerns through mediation, and of course I was dodging darts when I said that. So that didn't go too well, because of course you need both sides willing. One side was willing to enter into a mediation, the other side certainly was not. I know that we cannot force anyone to go into mediation, but I just felt that was unfortunate. I'm going to support this going forward. I think the challenge that I mentioned yesterday for the new caucus is how they are going to engage or re-engage some of their residents that actually were opposed to the formation of a new caucus. I think there's some hurdles that will have to be overcome. Hopefully that they understand some of the challenges and some of the missteps from the Snowmass Cap Caucus, and they'll be able to address them and get their residents fully engaged. Those who spoke in favor, I hope that they will participate and not leave this work up to one or two people, because then that poses further problems. And then on the other side, I hope the Capitol Creek Caucus will revisit how they are governed, look how they can better do outreach, and find hopefully some shared commonalities between the two master plans as they put them forward, where they can jointly agree on certain things, and I'm sure they'll have some differing views on other things. But as was stated yesterday, it's a close-knit community, even though it's two valleys, and I think it's going to be important to keep everyone engaged and try to move forward in a positive manner, because I think ultimately, I think the BLCC, and certainly we want to empower caucuses. We want to ensure that they are fairly represented and have the ability to provide for their future land planning and their destiny, and be able to provide input as an advisory group to the BOCC on land use issues.
Thank you. Patty,
I just want to make one quick, in addition, since hopefully this will move forward to the second reading now on the 14th, we have appreciated the volumes of comments. I would appreciate further anyone in the public who has not taken the opportunity to provide written or will not be able to be present on the 14th for public comment from either side of the caucuses or the issue. I would appreciate hearing from those that we have not heard from who really wish to have their voice heard.
Great. Thank you, Patty. Michael, any?
I'm ready to go forward.
Okay. I'll make some brief comments. It was a lengthy meeting yesterday. I think it was very important that there was enough runway for everyone to really get their feelings out on the table and try to be heard. I think there was some of the letters we received last night had perhaps a little much of an overreaction to the fact that these processes take time and that the issue was very new to us as much as it was very long-term to those who were here to talk to us. I think that some really great concerns have been raised that are things we need to take account of in the future. Michael's concern of caucuses ever splitting into smaller and smaller groups. I kind of got the impression that caucus had to be, mentally myself, at least 2 people, not 1, but that's something. We've talked a little bit about code cleanup and potential charter changes that could go to the voters in the future. Another one of those type of issues arose today on a separate application, and that would be the ability to notice neighboring caucuses about commenting on an issue that's very close to their common borders. I think that would be important cleanup for us to get in place. It struck me in particularly that maybe some of the genesis of that root of the conversation really came about the same way we see in other areas, other communities, about character, change, growth, changing status, and it's natural that those get people's attention and get them riled up and passionate in the conversation. And some of that's centered on TDRs. And this is a separate conversation this board has been having for a period of time. We've talked to our planning and zoning, we've talked to ComDev about what is the appropriate square footage that should be allocated per TDR. And the whole concern about going up to 8,200, and is that just 1 TDR get you up there? Is it 2? Should it be 3? And those are county-wide issues. I just want to be clear. But it could be that there's some middle ground between the 2 valleys about the use of TDRs related to how much square footage you get per TDR use in the future and how to maintain the program being a successful program. So that's separate. The only thing I could think last night was, boy, I hope somebody between the 2 hosts a party over the next 3 or 4 weeks and try to talk to their neighbors again, because the healing process is going to be the most important. And it's going to be awkward a little bit timing wise about what caucus master plan the new caucus would live under until they've had a chance to write their own. And I think that if you ended up taking the 2 caucuses master plans and putting them side by side, there probably would be congruence with 90% of the items, perhaps more. And so I could request that if this again goes forward fully after the second meeting, which I believe it will, form a neighborhood or a community building or neighborhood outreach committee, because the outreach with the neighbors is going to be the most important. And I'd love in the future, when we're hearing applications for some sort of crazy thing, to have the Snowmass and Capitol Creek Caucus hand in hand coming to tell us their opinion of it. And I think that that's going to be what's really important. I think that yesterday for myself, I felt like I heard some very, very sincere apologies and outreach from the current caucus members, and they were directed at our board, but I think they were to the neighbors, and kind of a public falling on your sword more than once, that mistakes were made. And I hope that the new caucus can take that to heart and to think again about how are the best ways we can work together. I do not think any of the previous accomplishments are going to be thrown out with the bathwater. So it's really how do you go forward to build on that again. And given that, maybe I'll have some more thoughts when we get to the final vote on the 14th, and we'll see what can happen in the meantime. But I do believe that a vote was held, and that in my estimation of the sufficiency of that and sufficiency of following the county standards, whether I like the outcome or not is separate. I think people who know me know I have voted for things that I think this is what is fair, whether that would be my personal gut instinct or not. And it was really tough seeing people you've known and worked with for 30 years on both sides of the aisle on that. And healing has got to be the most important thing for communities going forward. So with all that being said, is there a motion?
We have a motion.
No, we did? I heard him say he was ready to make a motion. I didn't.
He made a motion yesterday that we carried forward live to today.
That's right. Okay. So I thought the substitute motion would have taken over the motion to approve yesterday.
The issue until today.
It did. Okay. So we already have a motion. You already have the second recorded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you very much. This has been approved on first reading, and we'll continue to accept public comments before second reading in writing. And we hope all who care to be heard will attend.
Thank you. Thanks, Dee Dee.
Thank you. We're now going to move forward to the confirmatory reading on the emergency ordinance on the Prince Creek trails. Thank you so much.
Where's my coffee? I don't drink coffee.
I know, I had to beg for one so I can make it to Steamboat by 11 tonight.
Don't worry about it.
They want to keep me on the road. Yeah, they always tell me caffeine kicks in 5 hours afterwards. I figure this is just about the right timing to make it there.
Does it take that long?
Yeah.
My kind of caffeine.
Yeah. All right. So, Matt and Dale, welcome back to the table.
Hi, Matt Adeletti, Acquisition Manager, Open Space and Trails. This is the confirmatory reading for the emergency ordinance we did on July 27th for the Prince Creek Trail acquisition. The reason for that we did the emergency ordinance is because the ordinance that we did, which is Ordinance 010-2016, which we did several months ago, inadvertently failed to include a couple of legal descriptions and omitted the 2 easement agreements that we acquired as well. And so the emergency ordinance included those, and this is the the confirmatory reading for that emergency ordinance that we did. I haven't done one of these before. But we closed on the property on July 29th, and our staff is currently working on a management plan for the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions about this item?
I have one.
Okay.
There's no changes from the original emergency ordinance. We're just moving it forward for confirmatory approval.
Correct.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second? There's a second. Any further discussion? Thank you so much. And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now you guys stay right where you're at, because we have a resolution to approve the ballot question reauthorizing the Open Space and Trails program. And GR, the door's closing by itself. Never mind. Thank you. Here we go.
It's a soft close.
Thank you, Rachel. I will just recap briefly what we've been discussing for some months now. The resolution in front of you has a ballot question and some charter amendments in it that collectively will, if approved by the voters in November, would extend the current open space mill levy 20 years from its current sunset at 2020 out to 2040. So the tax rate would stay the same, extended for 20 years. There are a couple of changes in the charter that we're proposing. Most significantly, I think, is some added flexibility for the county regarding the allocations of the fund. We've been discussing these for some time, but to recap, as the asset inventory of Pitkin County's open space portfolio has grown, so has the stewardship cost associated with it, or operations and maintenance, however you want to describe it. It includes everything from our habitat restoration efforts to our law enforcement to our trail building and, within these open spaces. And we are at the ceiling of what the original charter allows. We need to raise the ceiling as we continue to expand our open space program. Secondly, the added flexibility would increase slightly the possible allocation towards trails. I want to stress that the potential need for that is tied to the expense of some of these paved trails around the county. It's not a reflection of any kind of intention to start spending a larger amount of the fund on the single track trails that have recently dominated some of the public's attention with habitat concerns, but that flexibility is needed. Are we to work on things like the Crystal Trail that was discussed earlier today, as well as some of the other paved trail linkages that the county has been eyeing for some time. And the acquisition funding, my prediction, will remain close to the current level for some time, but it will be possible for that to decrease over time, over this 20 years, by the action of the county commissioners and the Open Space Board. So that's the third general topic in this reauthorization. The first two, once again, same tax rate, 20 years, added flexibility in the allocation. Finally, we have a couple of changes in the charter regarding the scope of the program, which are A, to allow us to take care of historic structures when in the context of an open space property. B, to allow us to invest in biped facilities even where they are contiguous to existing paved road systems. And C, to clarify that we have the ability to expend funds on stewardship of federal lands when those lands are critical to the proper management of our own open spaces. So that's a pretty quick run through of the basic package. You have anything you want to add or emphasize, Gary?
Well, I just wanted to emphasize, I'm Gary Tenenbaum with Pitkin County Open Space, and I wanted to emphasize like why we are going now, just to make certain it's like, because we don't, the fund does not expire to 2020, and why we're going now is mostly for the allocation changes. We are at the limit of what our maintenance funding can do, and if we want to continue the protection of biodiversity, restoration, maintaining all of these assets that we have, we are at the limit of what we can do. And one of the other things that we want to bring up is, in 2006, Nordic was a huge piece of the puzzle of what we added, and to continue to maintain that into the future is one of the reasons why we need to change that allocation.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions or comments? Well, this is a public hearing, so why don't I open the public hearing first and we'll bring it back to the board. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on the resolution to approve the ballot question reauthorizing the Open Space and Trails program? I see one person. Scott, please come up to the podium for the recording in the temporary room we're in. And just ID yourself for the record.
I'll keep it brief. I'm Scott Ryder. I'm not a Pitkin County Commissioner, but I'm here to support this great program and the great work that's gone on the Open Space and Trails Board, Volunteer Board. Incredible work, and I love their participation. Staff seems to have done a great job on all of this. And thank you to you guys for putting this on the ballot and taking it forward. I'm a strong supporter, and I'd be happy to help try to get it voted to approval in November. So let me know how I can do that.
Thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. Okay, is there anyone else to make public comment on this issue? There being none, I will close the public hearing. Steve.
I was looking for the words paleontological paleontological and local production agriculture, and I found them on page 7 of 11. If you look on page 5 of 11, it has kind of the previous language also in the section 13.2.1, where it has historical, agricultural, and ranching activities, kind of in the middle of that paragraph. You see that?
Yep.
So I was suggesting maybe we could also add that same wording that's on the 2 pages later, include the wording "and local production agriculture" there. And then just below it in the underlined part, you have preserving cultural, historic, and archaeological resources. We could add "and paleontological" right there also. And that would make it just more clear that we added those things in 2 different places instead of just one.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah, just so nobody says they're in conflict.
No, I agree with that. That was one of my notes, so thank you, Steve, for bringing that up.
Okay. Other board comments then, or questions? Patty, you want to
No, I'm
other
good.
notes?
I would make a motion.
Okay, why don't you do
I'll
that?
make a motion to approve on second reading the resolution to approve the ballot question reauthorizing the open space and trails programs.
Second.
Okay. Other board comments or questions? Okay, I would make a brief comment. I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from Madeline, the reporter with the Aspen Times, and it was about an article she's getting ready to do about carrying capacity. And that title gets kicked around a lot. And actually, I told her I thought it was more about sustainability and resilience. And the article came out reliance, but that's okay. That's what happens with telephone interviews. And, you know, we're looking at a very crowded world that is getting more crowded, and the rate of growth in the Mountain West is just off the charts. It's more than any other part of the country right now, good times and bad. And I think that this program has been one of the most important tools for assuring that sort of sustainability and resilience in difficult times, ecologically, and changing times with things like climate change. I think they're one of the best tools we have as a community to deal with growth, to deal with character, to deal with change. And I'm very thankful for the voters of having given us those tools, and of the many, many special places that we've already preserved, and the type of diligence and care that goes into preserving the ones that should be saved in the future. So thank you. You guys are out there doing God's work, and I really appreciate it. All right, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Yay, move
Any
it forward.
opposed? There you go, you're on the ballot, guys.
We're up and running.
Let's
Okay,
roll.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The next item is the resolution authorizing issuance of general obligation refunding bond series. And that also relates to open space and trails, and we'll have Tom Oken walk us through that briefly.
Sure. Hi, Tom Oken, County Treasurer, and this is similar to refinancing your mortgage. It is refinancing $12,305,000 of outstanding general obligation open space debt that we have, and it's refinancing at a lower interest rate to save interest. Specifically, there are 2 issues. There's $8,055,000 that's outstanding at 4.23% interest, and that'll be refinanced at 1.99%. And then there's a $4,250,000 note outstanding at an interest rate of 5.3%, and we will refund that at 1.95%. In the process, we save more than $2.5 million in interest over the life of the debt issues. So that's it. This is second reading and a public hearing.
Okay. Tom, just out of a little curiosity, I know you're always watching the county's debt portfolio. Are you seeing any other older issues that may be coming up for refunding soon?
Actually, in the general obligation debt, we only have another 2.4 million outstanding that was refunded in 2013 at a little over 2%. So
It's about as low as it goes.
we're pretty well set.
Okay, thank you for that. Other board questions for Patty?
Thank you for saving us a heck of a lot of money. We appreciate it.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Actually, Steve, hold on one second. This is a public hearing. Is anyone here to comment on the resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds? There being none, I will close the public hearing. Steve Child.
Okay, Tom, is this, like on the Joy Smith one, I think we are getting near the end of the time on that, but will this extend the number of years that we're paying it off, and we're just paying off a lesser amount each year, or how does that work?
The structure of that note was interest only for 20 years, and then the full amount, the $4 million due. And so that was going to be due in 2020. And instead, we're spreading the payments equally over the next 15 years. So it is being extended to 2030, but we're taking out the balloon, the big payment aspect. And
so we'll be doing interest and principal.
Yes.
Instead of just doing interest and then the lump sum principal at the end?
Right, instead of doing that, yep.
Okay.
Okay. Additional questions? All right, well, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing issuance of general obligation refunding.
Second.
The Basalt pedestrian. And we have GR Fielding here to present this item for us today.
Pre-construction meeting scheduled for, August 30th. This, as I said in our first reading, I believe that this multi-governmental jurisdiction project management team is a bit of the way that we're going to be managing projects for our larger transportation projects in the future, as we have very good resources in-house at a lot of these local jurisdictions, and when we have capacity to bring it all together, it works very well.
Okay. Very good. Questions for GR? George?
GR, so who cuts the checks?
The town of Basalt does.
Town of Basalt.
I'll be acting as the resident engineer, and I will have, from the project team, I have review authority on the pay applications, and then I forward them to Judy Tibbetts, who is right now acting as the town manager for the town of Basalt.
Additional questions? Steve?
I presume that the possible resignation of Mike Scanlon doesn't affect this project in any fashion, but I just wanted to make sure that we won't run into some problems there.
Well, I don't believe that we'll run into any problems.
Except water.
And Steve, just to build on that, I did reach out to Judy Tippett today and made sure that she understood, our willingness to, make whatever changes or provide additional support necessary for the project while they are in transition. So we do not anticipate that it'll affect this project, and would recommend moving forward with it.
Patty?
Yeah, again, I'll just reiterate that this is a very dangerous intersection. I'm really anxious and eager for this underpass to be completed. So God willing and the creeks don't rise, literally, we'll get it done.
JR, when would construction be beginning?
We're anticipating that the contractor will mobilize in at the end of September. And this project is interesting. Typically in our geographic region, we do not
start winter construction.
Start with winter construction. However, with the groundwater being what it is in this location, it was decided to do winter construction as opposed to continually having to deal with dewatering the site, and would have been very difficult to find a location to put all of that water during construction. So while the groundwater is low and it'll be easier, and I think they knew, or they could put a number a little bit easier to what it would cost to winterize for construction.
And then two other questions related to the timeline. What is the anticipated completion date?
August of 2017.
Okay, so we would be going all the way through the winter and through most of the summer on this?
Yes.
Okay. Have they made provisions, or I'm sure we could add on, for queuing of the buses to have priority during the construction delay? Or are they anticipating detouring through the old River Road, the old Highway 82 through Basalt to avoid this intersection, things like that?
With two RAFTA engineers being on the project staff, a lot of attention has been put to how that interface is going to happen, and BRT buses and that are going to stay, all of the buses are going to stay on the main line that are there now. The bus stops will actually move down valley or up valley rather to facilitate the construction. And all of that's included in the plans for this project. We have also already started meeting regarding public relations, because we think that traffic is going to be one of the larger issues that we have on the project, particularly coming out of the south side. There's only one way in and one way out. I think that the Basalt Avenue traffic we might see some lower traffic counts as people go down to Rivers Road instead of going through that intersection. So we've already started meeting and trying to get some of our public information together. So once we have our pre-construction meeting next week, we can hit the ground running.
Okay. Because it strikes me that the traffic four-way stop on Two Rivers Road and main heart of Basalt may get so busy that we'd want to request that CDOT put up a temporary traffic light or something like that. You know, I know they like having a four-way stop, and we'll just have to gauge what traffic does, but I think a lot of people will start getting off, you know, and going through old Highway 82 to avoid the traffic, and I'm not sure I would either blame them or that that's not a bad idea. Patty, and then other questions?
In light of the bus stops moving up valley, you know, there's already an issue, even though the signal where the existing, of people jaywalking, which scares me to death. So I think we really need to pay attention to somehow ensuring that people get off the buses. Either way, if they have to cross the street, they go to whatever crossing they may have there that's safe, because even crossing at that signal is dangerous, let alone all the people that may be incentivized to jaywalk to get faster access than having to walk, you know, how much further to the signal. So if we can really try and figure something out there, it might well save lives.
You know, you almost wonder whether some of that avalanche fencing, you know, to make it a more of a corral or a fence that deliberately keeps people from just jumping over. But we'll have to look at that. Steve had his hand up first, and then George.
Yeah, just last night there was a pedestrian walking straight from the RAFTA stop right across towards the other. It looked like a drunk person, perhaps a homeless person. They had packs and stuff they're dragging along. We're still going to have a pedestrian management problem to educate and try to direct them to the underpass crossing. And I know we talked about that some at the ABC to have people quit going up to where the old crossing was, and I can't remember what all was done there, but that needs to be part of the project, as we can direct the pedestrians down there.
Kind of the physical design to prevent the old crossing at the old location. So
They still do, you're right, Steve.
Okay, certainly. George.
Yeah, the challenge in terms of putting a barrier is, especially in the wintertime, is for snow plows, and that was the same issue we had at the Airport Business Center. So that's a problem. We're just going to hopefully have people educated enough to take the extra 2-minute steps. This is such an athletic community that you think people would.
That's why they jaywalk, dodging the cars.
But with your outreach, you know, that intersection, where it really gets jammed up, especially now since school has started, is first thing in the morning and at the end of the day, because those buses are backed up to Southside, as you know. So I'm not sure how you're going to be able to coordinate or inform the school district that they'll need to think about perhaps some other means, perhaps to disincentivize people from driving in, kids driving in, or parents dropping kids off, whatever, because that intersection is unbelievably busy during those pick-up and drop-offs when school starts and ends.
You're 100% right, George, and it's actually been a topic of conversation already with our public information meetings. And so they're at the top of the list for sure, is the school district there on the south side. The other thing that we've done already is to start coordinating with CDOT and their division that controls the timing of the lights, and this is very high on their list, and we've gotten word from them that they'll be available to us to help work on timing of the lights at different times of the day when we see how we might need to shift some of those operations.
Great.
So I haven't heard from RAFTA. Is RAFTA going to be creating a temporary shelters on both sides? Or, because you said they're moving up their stops, or they'll use existing shelters and then people just have to walk up a little bit, as similar to when the Rio Grande, not the Ruby Park, was being done?
I'm not 100% sure what we have in the project right now for as far as shelters, but yeah, the stops are about the same place that they were for the construction of the BRT stops themselves.
Okay, thank you. I just think this is one we're going to have to keep a careful eye on and continue to work with our partners. I'd hope that we don't need to go into extra flag people or something like that, but perhaps we would. The one thing I think we could request from RAFTA would be that their drivers dropping people off at that stop before they stop, say as a friendly reminder, you must cross at the light during this construction zone, and just really kind of see if we can get people in the habit of re-emphasizing that as people are getting off the bus. And that hopefully people watch out for their own safety as much as everyone else's. Is there a motion on this item? We already get a motion?
I'll move to approve the IGA between the town of Basalt, Roaring Fork, RAFTA, and the Pickens County government for the Basalt pedestrian crossing.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And then as GR is getting ready to leave, I just want to update the board. I had talked to GR about what seems to be the failing roadway on Highway 82, literally from the roundabout to Cemetery Lane and into town, and he contacted CDOT, and a short-term way of saying it is they said, sorry, we're out of money, and we've spent the money for the year, but at the same time, that's their road, and it's going to be falling apart. You can just see the cracking, the alligatoring, the soft spots, and that's before we've hit the heavy winter traffic. So I don't know if it's possible to literally send them some pictures of that and say, but wait, this road's going to fall apart. They're going to be trying to fix it during Christmas week, with temporary pothole fill.
I know who I had the conversation with at CDOT's acutely aware of the issues that they have there, and they have a hard time managing the very short resources that they have to manage this corridor, and I think that this topic conversation will be really ripe for your conversation with CDOT. I believe that's coming up September 27th.
Yep.
Or thereabouts. But I understand it. It is usually when we have that annual meeting with CDOT, it ends up being a little too late for them to do anything. But I don't know if more prodding is going to get us further, but staff is certainly...
Well, the one thing I thought was maybe we could talk to the city of Aspen and talk to CDOT, and we could participate as well. But in the past, we were able to negotiate a reimbursement deal that we forwarded the money to do the roundabout, and then they paid us back. Now, that was a capital construction project. They don't want to do that anymore. They don't want it to be who has the money gets their things going first. But this is different in that it's a road repair of an existing road. And I don't know if the city would consider that, or anyone else, to say, here's what's going to get us through the winter. Can you guys reimburse us out of your budget next year if we don't have this fall apart? Because I'm just really concerned. This is 2 years in a row where it's just like the last thing done. And it's great they did the new asphalt up Independence Pass, but of course that's closed 6 months a year. So I don't know. I would leave John and JR maybe to explore that, talking to their counterparts at the city. If the city's not that concerned about it, I don't know why I should be, other than I'm a city resident, and I'm concerned about the buses. A lot of it's the bus lane that's falling apart. So maybe you guys could work on that. JR?
Just one note too about the city is that they do go out and aid CDOT very frequently and fill the potholes. The technology that they use to do that, especially during the winter time, tends to only have such a life. However, they do have that partnership with CDOT established, so maybe that might be an avenue that we can.
Yeah, if you could just keep following up with the city, that you've heard your board expressing concerns and hoping we could do
let's just
something.
hope when they drive up for a joint meeting, they don't have really good shocks on their car.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that has moved, that has passed. Thank you, GR.
Thank you.
Open discussion.
Thanks, Rachel. We have a few items for you. The first item, I'll ask Dale Will to come up. Open Space and Trails has been working on a GOCO grant, I believe, on the Glacier property. Sewell property, I'm sorry. And has run into a requirement where they need a letter issued, and it's become time sensitive for the grant opportunity. So I asked Dale to be here today to discuss it with you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, this is a new GOCO requirement. We just submitted a open space grant for the purchase of a conservation easement on Sunfire Ranch, which is owned by Jason and Alex Sewell. And there is a new GOCO requirement that we have a letter of non-opposition from the government entity with land use jurisdiction when submitting an open space grant. And I looked at that and thought, well, Pitkin County's submitting the grant. I probably don't need this letter. Well, I was wrong. And I think where this came from is that, believe it or not, there's a couple of counties that are further down the Colorado River drainage who have refused to support GOCO grants to preserve lands within their jurisdiction, and GOCO's gotten sensitive about it. So the grant request is requesting $1 million to go towards the purchase of a conservation easement. Somewhat unusually, we don't have this under contract. And the reason that we went ahead is that, number one, GOCO will accept a grant based on a letter of intent from the landowner, which we have. And secondly, because GOCO has decreased their number of open space grants per year down to 1 per year. So if we missed this one, it would be a full year before we could request another one. And we learned that they had an unusually large amount budgeted for this grant round. So all things converging, we decided we ought to get in the queue for some money on this round. Jason Sewell was happy to help us do it. And now I need a letter of non-opposition that the county would want this land conserved.
Do we need to vote on it, or can we just tell you to have Rachel sign it?
On letters of this nature in the past, we've been able to go through open discussion, but we wanted to be sure that the board was aware that we'd be making that request and was okay with the chair signing.
Oh, we can make a motion. I'd make a motion to sign a letter of non-opposition to
And I second
the
it.
GOCO grant.
And I call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
As long as we're on this subject, I would also like to make a note that in discussing this with GOCO, I learned that their annual board retreat will take place in Carbondale the week of October 5th. And of course, we have a couple local friends on that board, Alan Schwartz and Bill Kane. but they are planning to have a community picnic on the evening of October 5th. And as luck has it, I'm planning on being out of town, but anyone that wants to mark that on their calendars would be great if we had a good presence when they do that.
Is Matt Sugar still on that board?
Matt has, no, he's gone.
He's gone, okay.
Okay, well, that's a
So
good.
Wednesday
heads
night?
up. Yeah, it's a Wednesday night.
Wednesday, late afternoon or evening in Carbondale, and the exact details are still being scheduled.
All right. Well, thank you very much on that item. John, what other open discussion do we have?
So the board has done 3 renewal interviews for the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board with Dave Nixa, Lisa Tasker, and Andre Willie yesterday. There are no other applications for those seats, and so would wonder if the board is ready to give direction on those renewals or reappointments at this time.
All right. Somebody make a suggestion?
Yeah, I think we approve the appointment.
I agree.
So we'll prepare a resolution making those appointments then.
Okay.
And then the last thing I know for the board, we did not get to our facilities update yesterday because our schedule ran over a little bit. Just just note for the board that you may notice there are moving trucks in front of the Courthouse Plaza building. Our business information technology system, otherwise known as our IT department, is moving this week, and the rest of us will be moving or beginning our move next week. So you'll see a lot of activity, things missing from the building. That's all normal at this point. So
I have a question.
Patty?
As far as where our boxes will be up here, I guess it's been a moving target.
yeah, we're working on that in the old courthouse, and what we had originally talked about was having it upstairs near the sheriff's department. Some board members had requested after-hours access, and so we're looking if that would be better accomplished downstairs, because the police station is typically
Well, and I
open.
did mention to John that when I was on planning and zoning, that's where the planning and zoning
Yeah.
boxes were for us to pick up our packets, and it worked great.
Yep, so we're working on that
Thank you.
now.
Yeah, I agree with the after-hours pickup is kind of a necessary when you,
Now, we will also have boxes, so what we're gonna need to do is figure out where you guys want to pick up your mail, because for Steve and George, at least I'd imagine it'd be easier to pick up at the Basalt location. Michael, I'm not sure where it's going to be easier for you either if you're at Aspen. And then obviously for Patty and Rachel, it'll be easier up here, so we're working out those
Perfect, thank you,
logistics.
thanks,
Yeah.
appreciate the effort.
it's convenient that next week, or excuse me, next
Yeah,
week
next
is the
week is
5th
our
week
off
of the
week.
month. And so we don't have meetings, we don't have packets to pick up,
Yep.
and we'll await further detailed instructions from you and Charlotte.
It's almost like we planned it that way, yeah.
Almost like we did it that way.
Good job.
Okay.
And that's all I have for open discussion.
Do board members have any open discussion items? Steve?
Well, a similar question, we all meet with you, John, and your office is going to be in Basalt, but have you put any thought into like where we'll meet and maybe adjusting the times and days we
Stubbies
meet?
for
Or
lunch.
maybe
Yeah.
we meet up here somewhere on days of meetings, or I don't know what.
Yeah,
what are
so
your thoughts on that?
during meeting days, certainly on Tuesdays and then every other Wednesday, I'm going to plan on just being in Aspen. I do not have a designated spot, but I'm pretty excited to spend more time in the library or at Peaches, and I think what we'll need to do then is adjust for those days when we do have meetings set up, or if we choose to set up meetings on those days, we'll choose a location to meet. Otherwise, I am going to be splitting time really between Basalt and up here and places in between. So I'd imagine I'll probably have 2 full days down in Basalt, 2 full days up here, and a swing day between.
And will your office, will you have like a closed door kind of office in Basalt, or are you going to be out in the communal meeting space?
I am going to be out with everyone else, and we do have opportunities for, we've named our meeting rooms after ski run ratings. So we have a green room, which is a very small 2 to 3 person room with a closable door, then a blue room that can seat roughly 6 or 7, and then a black room which will seat up to 10, I believe, and then a double black room which will do 12 to 14. So we'll be using those spaces as needed when private conversations need to happen. There are some departments like human resources and such which will have closed doors and such because they more frequently have those conversations that need to be closed door.
I was just thinking something along those lines as well. The phone numbers for the public to reach the county, those will be the same?
They'll remain the same. It's fortunate when we made the switch of our phone system a few years back, we went with an internet protocol-based phone system, so it's very easy to move the phones and the numbers where we have internet.
Great.
Yeah.
Steve?
Will the physical mailing address still be the same, and then mail somehow picked up?
Yeah, and it's so we've got the forwarding figured out. They typically do not forward for this period of time, so we're working through that issue also. Yeah.
So you have to put the order in a second or third time. Yeah. But okay, are there other further board questions today?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone, for pushing through. That was a long agenda. Thank you, Grassroots. We really appreciate
I
it.
didn't cough on you too much.
No.
I'm getting better. I haven't been on my bike in like 3 weeks now. Terrible.
My case they gave me was just one of those, whatever the cheapest thing is, get for her. Yeah. Oh, thing right away, I broke it away. Yeah. I usually have to stretch, so maybe that's what I need.
So Patty Molly was asking, what was the vote on the caucus thing?
Today it was 403.